like to call to order the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. It's Wednesday, November 30th, 9:03 a.m., and we are here at the Carson City Community Center Robert Bob Kroll Boardroom. Could I get a roll call, please? Allison.
David Peterson.
Present.
Stephanie Hicks.
Here.
Jim Wells.
Here.
Leah Cruz.
Here.
Clay Mitchell, not currently present.
Yeah, and we'll mark him present when he arrives. So we do have a quorum, so thank you very much. Let's go ahead and, if I could get everybody to stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to agenda item 4, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of this public body. I don't see any public comment in the room. Anybody? Any takers? Okay. Well, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 5 for discussion only. Introduction of our new commissioner, Leah Cruz, who is the acting director of the Virginia City Tourism Commission. Welcome, Leah. You want to say anything? You want to throw a few words out there?
I'm really happy to be here. I've been with Virginia City now with the Tourism Commission up there for about 4 years. So this is kind of exciting to step into something else, and happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, so thank you very much. Now we got a full 5 of us up here, so this is great. So welcome aboard. All right. Yes, when Clay shows up, yes, we'll have a full 5, correct. All right, so let's move on to agenda item 6 for possible action, approval of the minutes of the October 26, 2022 meeting.
I do have edits, Allison
Okay,
Bolton,
thank you,
for the
Allison.
record. Quite a few, so hang with me. On page 2, line 4, item is spelled wrong. Should be spelled I-T-E-M, not T-T-E-M. Page 3, third line from the bottom, train, not trained. Page 8, line 23, below, B-L-O-W, not below. Page 8, 8 lines from the bottom, day is not days. Page 9, 17 lines from the bottom, when, not what. Page 9, 14 lines from the bottom, 18, not 18th, with the TH. Page 10, maintenance of way, not maintenance way lines. And lines 16, 27, and 29, all the same change. Page 10, line 29, equipment, not equivalent. Page 11, line 25, Michaela should be Michaela. Page 14, middle, issues without a formal policy. So the wording here is just, it's in the middle of page 14. The wording here is just a little off. We believe that there's a second not in there. So it says certainly not to not. We're going to remove an extra not in that sentence.
Wait, sorry, I'm behind a page. Is that 14 or 13?
Yes, that's page 14.
And will you just say that one again?
Yes, it's in the middle. I'm trying to find the exact sentence right now. You got it, where it says certainly not, and yeah, there's just an extra not in there. And then the same page, the paragraph that starts with 21, 22, about the 4th line down, the sentence reads, without a formal policy, what was it that the policy that they were banking on to issue these credits? It should read, without a formal policy, what was the policy that they were banking on? Just a grammatical thing there. Page 16, line 5, generate extra work, not gesture something. Page 17, line 9 should be Allison, not Stephanie. Page 17, line 23, then, not and. Page 20, line 11, invested, not vested. Page 20, line 12, from a planning, not from, hold on, page 20, line 12, from a planning, not from, of a planning, so removing the of. Page 20, third paragraph. Actually, I think this is the same change, Stephanie. It is. Removing the extra of. So ignore that one. Just that page 20, removing the of. Page 21, line 24, season, not seasoned. Page 23, line 13, Sunday, not Saturday. Page 23, 3 lines from the bottom, palatable, not vatable, not a word. Page 27, 12 lines from the bottom, see, not seeing. Page 29, line 4, a ampersand and K, not a N K. Page 29, ballast, not bowels, 16 lines from the bottom, 11 lines from the bottom, referenced those 3 times. And that is all I have for today.
Hey, thanks, you guys. That's great. All right. Are there any other edits or changes anybody may have? If not, I'd be happy to entertain a motion on the minutes. Go ahead, Jim.
I'd move to approve the minutes from the October 26th, 2022 meeting.
With
The changes that Allison walked through.
Great. Thank you for that motion, Jim. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thanks for those edits and changes. Okay, we will move on to agenda item 7 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding the V&T Statement of Accounts payable checks paid October 1st through the 31st, 2022. The V&T Commission will review the invoice listing for accounts payable checks totaling $52,845.20, again, paid for the month of October. Jim, anything out of the ordinary on this one? Okay, any questions, comments from Commission? If not, I'd be happy to entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve the payable checks paid October 1st through 31st, 2022.
Thank you for that motion, Stephanie. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Get in there, get that microphone on. That's perfect, huh?
Second.
What a way to come in hot, Clay. Yeah.
For the record, we'll mark Clay Mitchell as present,
Yes. You even
and
say it's at 9:11 a.m. That's perfect.
and he has
And he has seconded our
the
motion.
motion.
He's awesome. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to where are we at? 8, I believe. For possible action, agenda item 8, discussion and possible action regarding the adjusted V&T fiscal year 22-23 budget report for the period ending October 31st, 2022. So the V&T Commission will review a comparative statement of adjusted revenue totaling $977,337.26, expenses totaling $233,297.71, and to make a determination whether they approve the report. Jim, you want to add anything on this one? You okay with?
The only thing I'll add here is that thanks to Jennifer and the crew up in Story County, for the first time in a year and a half, we now match.
Yes.
So we have, that's the reason we are using the report from the county's
That's awesome.
financial system.
That's great. Cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Any questions from anybody about the numbers? Okay, happy to entertain a motion on this one. Anybody?
I move to approve the budget report for October 31st, 2022.
Thank you for that motion, Stephanie. Do I have a second?
This is Clay. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, that's great. Thank you very much. All right, We are on agenda item number 9 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the V&T Railway Commission FY22 Annual Audit Report and Financial Statement. So we have Casey Nealon, we have Suzanne Olson here from Casey Nealon, and she is going to walk us through the audit and the financial statements. And I should make mention, late material was provided last night. It was posted to the website. It is in the back of the room. And that moved us from a preliminary draft to a final draft of the audit and the financial statements. So with that, Suzanne, I'll have you kind of walk through the changes between the two versions, if that's okay, and just hit the highlights. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome. Is it on?
If it's green, yeah.
Yep, okay. This is Suzanne Olson for the record. I'm going to go through the communications required, the communications with governance that is required first, and then I will go through the changes. Awesome. All right, so we have audited the financial statements of the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway for the year ended June 30th, 2022. And our professional standards require that we communicate certain items with you at the conclusion of our audit. The first item I'm going to go through is a significant audit matters. Management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. The significant accounting policies used by the commission are described in Note 1 to the financial statements. The one thing I wanted to bring to your attention that's different this year is the implementation of GASB 87. That is it involves leases and how operating leases are reported on the statement of net position. And so this year, you have a lease receivable and you currently have a deferred inflow of resources for the lease liability portion of that adjustment. And so it really had a very minimal impact to the changes in your net position for fiscal year 2022, and that will be how that proceeds. As you use the lease, it will amortize out the operating lease over the term of the lease ultimately. So it doesn't change your lease at all. All it does is change how we're presenting it, and the asset pretty much is the same dollar amount as the liability with just that very small change impacting your change in net position. And there is a disclosure in Note 1 that describes that in more detail. The GASB 87 was adopted during 2022, which is considered a change in accounting principle. We noted no transactions entered into by the commission during the year for which there is a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. The accounting estimate that's reported on your financial statements, which is the integral part of your financial statements prepared by management and are based on management's knowledge and experience about past and current events and assumptions about future events. That estimate, the only estimate that we identified fell within that category, was related to your accounts receivable and its collectability. We evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to develop the estimate of collectability and determining that it is reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. Ultimately, what's on your books as of 6/30 for accounts receivable has been collected already within the next fiscal year, and we identified that through testing, so it was fully collectible. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We did not encounter any difficulties performing the audit. We were able to obtain the information that we needed to complete our audit and substantiate our opinion. There were some corrected misstatements. The listing of misstatements here is different than what was provided originally. We're only required to present material misstatements in this letter, so I removed anything that was below our materiality threshold. Those adjustments will still be recorded. They're just not reported in this letter. Does anyone have any questions related to these entries, or would you like me to go through these entries?
I'll leave that up. Does anybody want to go through the entries? Is that important to anybody? No, I think we're
right.
okay. I'm not seeing any takers, but thank you.
Perfect. There were no disagreements with management. We were able to, as I said earlier, get everything that we needed to be able to perform the audit. Management representations will be signed once the final draft has been approved. We'll send that over to you for signature, and then we'll go ahead and be ready to issue the audit. We did not have to consult with any additional management or other independent auditors or accountants during our audit work. And we did not have any new audit findings or issues. We do have a comment on the audit finding that was presented last year that we'll discuss when we go through the actual audit. Other matters, there is some required supplementary information. It's the budgetary comparison information that's provided in the financial statements. We applied certain limited procedures and the management discussion and analysis. We provided certain procedures to the management's discussion and analysis in the budgetary comparison information, which are required. Supplementary information that supplements the basic financial statements. Our procedures consisted of inquiries of management regarding the methods of preparing the information and comparing the information for consistency with management's responses to our inquiries. The basic financial statements and other knowledge we obtained during our audit of the basic financial statements was used, and then we did not audit the RSI and do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the RSI. And then the last thing is the restriction on use of the audit report. It says this information is intended solely for the information and use of management and the commissioners and the commission's board of commissioners, and is not intended to be and should not be used by anyone other than those specified parties. And that is our required communication with the commission. Does anyone have any questions related to those communications?
Any questions for Suzanne on that part? No?
Okay.
Yeah, please proceed. Thank you.
So now we'll start at the beginning of the audit. We're going to be on page 1, the independent auditor's report. We're going to be looking at the emphasis of a matter paragraph. So
Suzanne, could I just interrupt you for 1 second? I apologize.
yes,
Are we on is it preliminary or the final draft?
we are on the final draft.
Okay, so everybody's got the final draft. Beautiful. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Within this paragraph, we are on the third sentence. This was updated to reflect that Story County and the commission have done a partial reconciliation of the items that were in the report last year related to the due from local governments balance. We updated this paragraph to state that the amounts due from Story County to the commission under these agreements have been partially reconciled between the two organizations since the inception of the first agreement. It is unknown whether the outcome of the reconciliation will result in a material impact to the commission, and no additional findings have been requested or has been requested. No additional fundings have been requested.
And just to be clear, this is the 319 that we had on the books, but I know there were two separate amounts. Like one was 319,000. We paid 321, but by the time that happened, it was August and it didn't get put back into fiscal 22.
Right.
So it becomes a zero
Yes.
at the end of fiscal 23 when we do this next year. Okay.
Correct.
Perfect.
That is correct.
Okay.
But we're
So-
still pending a decision on the $250,000 depot and then the revenue question that's out there.
Yeah, but that's separate though,
But
right?
that's
From
separate.
the part that they were paying for us, when we didn't have a checking account. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the reconciliation that's not done, is the 1 cent revenue to the 250 grand that we get per year.
Okay.
And then the $250,000 liability to the county for the depot.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So that has got to be resolved between the county and the commission still.
Okay. We got one thing done.
One done.
One done.
One
One to go.
down, one
Yeah.
to go. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And Clay will probably just write off the rest, so that's nice of him. Thank you, Clay.
Okay, so that was the first change that we made. The next change is on page 5. And this change, this is to the economic condition and outlook. This information was provided by Jim. It has been updated in its entirety to state, to read, state mandated COVID-19 related restrictions have relaxed gradually during the year ended June 30th, 2022. The commission had an unpredictable 2022 train season and had submitted an augmented budget. While uncertainties linger, operations have mostly returned to normal, and revenues forecasted for the upcoming fiscal year are based on the regular schedule determined by the commission. In addition, the commission continues to pursue new revenue opportunities for the use of its assets. So that entire paragraph was updated.
Looks great, Jim. Thank you.
The next update is on page 13. It's note 4. And the change was made at the third sentence. It was updated to reflect, during the year ended June 30th, 2022, the commission received a $200,000, I'm going to remove the A. During the year ended June 30th, 2022, the commission received $200,000 from the promissory that was being held in escrow. That was updated because last year that $200,000 had been approved to be released but had not been received yet. So that's why that was updated.
And that's because we couldn't do anything with it, could we? It was like sitting in an envelope somewhere on somebody's desk, or I don't know. It was kind
That was
of weird.
part of that was because we didn't have the new loan agreement.
That's right.
yet.
Okay.
You
And
were
so
ne-
it was just sitting in escrow until the
Okay.
new loan agreement was signed.
Okay. And Jim, you're good with the way that, okay, great.
Okay, and then we added a last sentence. So the last sentence was added to read, as of June 30th, 2022, the note receivable was in arrears 3 months. We do have a subsequent event coming up that identifies that that money was received in July. So there is another piece to that coming up. All right, on page 15, note 9. So note 9 is actually, starts on page 14 and goes through page 15. We left let's start on 14. We left the information related to the interlocal agreements that pertained to the amount of money that Story County owes annually to VNT based on the legislation, the tax collected in that. And then we also left the information related to the $250,000 payable on the depot, for the purchase of the depot. And then we also left in here where it talks about how that $319,000 was determined. And then we modified the last paragraph on page 15 to read, during the year ended June 30th, 2022, the amounts included in due to other governments of $319,363 representing expenditures of the commission paid by Story County were reconciled and are due to Story County and are reported as a liability on the statement of net position. The remaining outstanding items that are still subject to the reconciliation between the two organizations relate to the amount of revenues that Story County owes to the commission per the interlocal agreement and the $250,000 for the purchase of the old freight depot in Virginia City. My question on this one is to Jim. Does that meet the standard of what you were looking for when you provided your comments?
Yeah, I think that's fine because we're going to talk about the payment in the next note.
Yes, we are in subsequent events.
The only thing I will say is if you look at the page 15, it says note 9 continued. It's actually note 8.
Oh, goodness, thank you.
So it's
I will-
8, 9, and 10 on this page instead of 9, 10, and 11.
I will make that change. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I ask, there's also an extra space or maybe two in the first sentence in yellow between the words the and
the
amounts.
Okay.
And then just a question for Jim and Suzanne. Since we paid, after we did the reconciliation of what Story County covered while we didn't have the bank account or the checks or whatever the case was, we paid $321 and change. We don't have to acknowledge that because technically it was paid in this fiscal year? Is that the?
It
How
is,
do we, how are we dealing with the
That's
small
gonna-
difference?
that's going to go to a different, like a miscellaneous account
Oh,
or
I-
an
okay,
account of
I
your,
see.
there was no, it was below the materiality level that we would require to need to be able to make that adjustment
Gotcha.
in this year.
Okay,
So it will be something that can be adjusted at the time that the deposit is deposited.
yeah, okay, so that all is in fiscal '23.
Correct.
Again, next year we do it. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions related to note 9? Note 9, or note
note
8,
eight,
sorry,
yeah.
note 8. Note 8 will be updated, so that emphasis of a matter paragraph on
Yep.
that audit opinion
Yep.
will now say note 8.
Okay. Do we have to shift anything else, or is that it? Just that?
So, and then
one?
on page 15, at the top, that commitments and contingencies will be note 8. And now subsequent events is going to be note 9. And then risk and uncertainties will be note 10. And then we should be, okay? All right. So note 9, subsequent events, we added the second paragraph. On July 11th, 2022, the payments in arrears associated with the note receivable in note 4 were received. On July 27th, we modified that to remove the dollar amount because of the difference between the 319 and the 321. So we just identified that the commission approved the payment to Story County for invoices paid on the commission's behalf from July 1st, 2019 to August 19th, 2019, and identified that the payment was made on August 26th, 2022.
That's great. Okay. Yeah. I thought maybe we had to
Yeah.
show that, but I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying about
Yeah.
we'll handle it in fiscal 23. So thank you.
Is there any questions related or any changes that need to be added to the subsequent event footnote at this point? We got the last bit of information on Monday, so just want to make sure.
Yeah. Anybody want to? You're okay with that?
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then on note 11, risk and uncertainties, I got an updated information from Jim on risk and uncertainties. So the last part of this paragraph was modified from the original to read, while there is the potential for future disruptions, the operations of the commission have mostly returned to normal. The commission does not currently expect this matter to negatively impact its operating results. However, potential future financial impacts related to COVID-19 cannot be reasonably estimated.
I think that's great. That's a good extra comment.
Perfect. All right, and then the next change happens on page 16, which is the required supplementary information, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, budget to actual. We updated this report from the original, made a few small changes. What we wanted to do was make sure that the final augmented budget categories agreed to the augmented budget that was provided to us and to Story County. And so we added the train-related services under operating expenses. And then, because before we had the $316,000 as part of repairs and maintenance. So we broke it out. And then when you're looking at your actual numbers, we broke out the train-related expenses to repairs and maintenance as well. So it was comparative.
And that would be what we're paying Tom per run, basic, long and short, right? Regardless of what the train is and the time of the year. Okay, that makes sense.
And you need to put the formula in the
Yep,
variance column.
I just saw that, Thank you, Jim. The other thing that I did was there was some repairs made to engine number 18. And engine number 18 was put into service during fiscal year 22. So those repairs were capitalized during the audit. I removed them from repairs and maintenance and put them under capital outlay for the purpose of the budget. And then when you come down to the bottom, depreciation is not part of your budget. And since we capitalized the capital outlay, to get to what's reported on the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position that are provided in your financial statements, we have to add those back, and that's how we get to the 685, 353. So without depreciation and including the capital outlay, your net position was 92,851, and your budget net position was 111,200.
And should we change the change in net? It says position, but we should change that R to an N, yeah?
That is actually an N. I will fix
Oh.
the formatting on that. There's
Oh, okay.
that, it just cut it.
It's cutting it off?
It's just cutting
then?
it off,
Oh,
yep.
okay. Thought that was a no, I thought that was maybe French or
No.
something. Position. Okay, so I mean, basically, we're just a little under 20,000 from what we originally budgeted, our final augmented budget, then you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, and then when I add that formula, when I made that change, I didn't add that formula. So when I add that formula, it will come down to that $20,000 number.
And sorry I didn't say this to you earlier in the week, but what's the negative? Oh, never mind. So the variance, it's not looking at final versus actual, is it? It's summing vertically. So it's not the difference between the 111 and the 92.
It would be, yes, you're missing. So if you go back up to that train-related services, the 316 minus
Oh,
the
without the
two-
formula.
Yeah.
Oh, so those are
so
additive.
that's-
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it
great.
will come down
So
to
all
that
of that will,
20,000.
but
Yes.
we don't need to go through that right now, what that ends up being, right? 'Cause
If you would like me to, I
um,
can.
Do we need to do that on the record or not? I'm assuming it's okay if the formula goes in there, we realize then that total expenses, I think, is going to change, right? And the change in net position, those two cells will change. Is that it? We can just acknowledge that, I guess.
I'm going to give you a number,
Okay, thank you.
and that way there is no confusion.
Yeah, because I think total expenses, it's like 85-ish, 84 and change. And like 19-ish or whatever.
So the change that the actual budget to actual change is $18,349 loss or less.
Okay.
Your actual came in at $18,349 less than your budget.
Okay, great.
Does anyone have any
Thank you.
questions related to this budget to actual comparison?
Will the total expenses, though, that will be slightly different too, right? That'll be like about 85 when we add
On the variance
on
column?
the variance, yeah.
Yes. so
Because
that-
the 316 versus the 292, right, we
yes.
underspent, so that,
So the
like
difference
84
there
and change or
is. $23,650 plus $60,885. So the total expenses would be $37,235.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Wait, 37 or 87?
It would be an unfavorable, or it would be favorable, sorry about that.
So total expenses will be in the variance column, 84,535,
Yes, that is
Yeah,
correct.
okay. 84,535, okay.
Yes,
as a positive number.
Yep.
Yep.
Offset by the negative in the total revenues variance of 102,884 gives you the minus 18349.
correct. Sorry that you're
No,
having to do math.
That's all, no, I wanted to use the calculator app on my phone, but I didn't bring my glasses, so it's hard to see. Thank you for, thank you for clarifying.
You are very welcome. Moving on to page 19, these are the prior year schedule of findings. So this was the finding that was reported as of June 30, 2021. And I'm just going to go over the high level, but the finding was absent or inadequate controls over the safeguarding of the assets. This note, or this finding had to do with the Draco note. The status has been updated to read The commission executed a new note during fiscal year 2022 and has put processes in place to monitor the status of open contracts prior to contract renewal. Does anyone have any additional comment that I should add to that, or is that adequate at this time?
No, I think that's fair. So Jim, we have a contract log now where all the payments are being placed against what the not to exceed authority is on the contract, and we're delineating it by fiscal year. So I feel pretty comfortable with the process that we have
Perfect.
in place.
All right. Those were the only changes, material changes that were made between the original and the preliminary. There were some formatting and grammatical type changes that were made, and I just did not bring those to your attention because they didn't have a material impact to the financial statements. So,
No, that's fair. Great job. Yeah, thank you.
all right. Does anyone have any
Yeah,
questions?
Anybody? Okay. So you will go back, work on
Make those few
the
changes we
yep,
discussed.
and then we'll
Mhm.
get a version maybe later today. And
You'll get a version with the management rep letter that you'll have to sign and return to us,
Okay.
and then we'll issue the final.
Yep, then we got to
today.
get it over to taxation,
Yes.
SAP. Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no additional questions, anybody want to make a motion on accepting?
So
The re-
before we get to
Okay.
that, I'm going to read the email that Jennifer sent, voicing some concerns about not being given sufficient time to review the adjusting journal entries. And she is not signing off on the audit report, and could not be here this morning because she had a conflict. I don't know that that changes my opinion on approving the report. I've gone through the entries and I don't see anything glaring that would make me question the entries the adjusting entries that were made for the financial statements. But I wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Jim. I don't have an issue with it either. I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, technically, it's our responsibility to approve the audit as the commission. So, I mean, we have changes, which we
We
will
have.
ask, for
Yeah.
Jennifer to make, obviously, but
Yes.
she could do those
She can book those journal
at any
entries.
point.
Mhm. Yep.
I think her point was that she's the contract that we have with Story County puts her as the point person for budget and accounting related matters, and she's the contact person. And again, I think that's fine. I think most of the entries that I saw in here were related to accruals and stuff that we just don't deal with in the normal course of the year. I just don't see any real issue. The leasehold changes obviously were an adjustment. I just don't see anything in here that would preclude me from approving the report.
Fair enough. Anybody? Go ahead, Susan, sorry.
I would like to say that we were prepared to issue a final draft on the 18th of the month, but we were pending subsequent event information from her office in order to prepare and finalize this. So I would like that to be put on record as well.
And you don't have that
I-
still from?
I did
Jen?
receive it. I received it on Monday
Okay,
of this week, but
okay,
it was requested on the 18th.
okay. Anybody have any consternation over us approving this? I mean, we're kind of in a pickle because today is the last day of November and we're obligated to, approve an audit no later than the 30th of November, so.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have any reservation. Matter of fact, I'll make a motion to approve the audit report for the V&T Railroad Commission financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022, with the changes that were noted as we walked through the report.
Thank you for that motion, Jim. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Jim, would you mind just restating the concerns that Jennifer expressed? Just so I make sure I understand what they are.
So she was concerned that she did not get the adjusting journal entry. So the Story County financial system, the Tyler municipal system that we use to process our transactions, we do it basically on a cash basis. So at the end of the year, the auditors will come in and make all the accrual adjustments for accounts payable, accounts receivable. things like interest from the note, because we just record the note payments from Roy Street, prepaid revenue, inventory that we expense during the budget reports that we see during the year. So just making all those accrual entries to make the financial statements, which you see on these pieces of paper. So those entries were provided to Jennifer last night, and she basically is saying that she's concerned she hasn't had a chance to review those entries, and that, because she is under the contract, our contact person for budget and accounting matters, that she will not sign off on the report itself. Like I said, I'm not concerned because I've reviewed the entries when they came, the preliminary entries came through, a week ago. And so I just am not concerned with the entries that were made. I think that once they make those in the Tyler system, they'll just sit there for a year, and next year when the auditors come out, they'll basically reverse all the accrual entries that we put in this year and add the accrual entries for next year. So from a practical matter, I just don't think it really matters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So we do have a motion from Jim to approve the audit and the financial statements for fiscal '22. Stephanie seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, I appreciate it. And, I think we keep refining the process and.
This year was a lot
Yeah,
smoother. We
agreed.
just have to work on our timing a little bit more.
Yes.
And I agree, I think it needs to be on both sides, and the communication is better this year, but I always think there's room for improvement. So.
Yeah, because I think, maybe for next year, trying to have something more toward the middle of the month, I understand everybody's concerned. It's hard to get the updated version as the late material on the last day of
It's
the month.
very hard.
So Stephanie's been stressing out over this for weeks, I know, so.
We need to get an earlier start.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
that's really what it comes down to, because I know
Yes.
for us, for Visit Carson City, I feel like we start a month earlier,
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things, like we're way underway before we get underway with the V&T's process, so.
But I think there were extenuating circumstances for why we were getting started later this year related to bank statements and stuff, getting
So-
reconciled and that kind of
Perhaps.
thing.
So I think that part of it too is I had been going through with different statements than the Tyler system had the whole year. This time, we had some revenue transactions that were mismatched from late 2021. There was a lot of things in my records that were correct that in the Tyler system were not fixed, and so I think that was a start. We basically were trying to reconcile my records to what the Tyler system had in it, that, like I said earlier, that now we match
I will
through
say
October.
that helped tremendously. So what that effort right there was tremendous this year. So
Okay.
But
But
yeah.
Jim, you feel now that we're in alignment, will we still have to have two separate sets of books, or?
I will
we need to
probably
see a couple
continue
months?
it for
Okay.
the balance of 2023, but my hope is that in 2024, we do not have to have two sets of books.
Beautiful.
And I actually, when I gave the entries to Jennifer this year, I told her which ones were reversing. So she could possibly have those done as well, which would reduce the amount
Yeah.
of what we're doing. So
And part of, am I correct in understanding this year too, instead of giving partial entries, we had a situation where everything got doubled up last year.
Yes,
So we were
mhm.
trying not to have that same situation for Jennifer, right, where we gave half or whatever, the entries and give the other half. But then last year, things were double entered or double counted.
I was
or
working with
s-
Jennifer
yeah.
all the way through like January, I think, to get the
Yeah.
budget. So there was changes that were made to the beginning balances, dating, like when you change fiscal years, when you're
Mhm.
typing in January or calendar year. So January 2022 transactions got recorded back into 2021. And so we had
Right.
beginning balance changes and then journal entry changes and then.
Yep.
So
And this year, there'll just be one set of
she
journal
did
entries
not get
changes.
more
Yeah.
than one set of journal entries
Excellent.
this year.
So hopefully
so
that will
I think that will
help
make
and be more efficient
that
too.
much
for-
easier for her, so she won't be as nearly as stressed out over that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but the goal would be to be done sooner.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. We'll get a little bit better
'Cause
each
it's
fiscal
stressful
year.
for
so
everyone involved.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you
So,
to you
you're
and the
very
team
welcome.
and Yoween. So thank you so much. Yeah,
You guys are
for all
very
your work.
welcome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
take care. All right. Okay, well, let's move on to agenda item 10 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the draft master contract with the Virginia and Truckee Railroad for train services, lease, maintenance, and storage of locomotive number 18 and use of VTRR's intellectual property as the contract, and direction to staff and/or chair to coordinate review with VTRR. So again, huge thanks, staff and Clay and Michaela for getting us to this point at the meeting. Would you, Stephanie, or Allison's going to walk us? Okay, great. So you'll walk through the contract and then all of the attachments that are included within, and then we can.
Yes,
we can
and all comments
talk.
from Stephanie are welcome.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Okay, great, thank you.
So yes, massive kudos to Stephanie and Michaela for really kind of taking what was discussed at the last meeting and converging it into one document with subsequent attachments, outlining kind of the conversations with Tom Gray. Essentially, what the goal is today is for us to go through these documents and identify there are at least 3 areas that we would like to focus on. Of course, then open it up to any other changes or comments on the contract itself. But there are 3 that we've identified that we would like input from the commission. And then essentially, create changes and a draft to then turn it over to Tom Gray and his attorney. Those are ultimately our goals today. So if we start into the contract, we do have the standardized contract here. And as mentioned with subsequent attachments, you'll see on page 2, the various attachments that we do have, the sole source determination memo, the insurance schedule, the train services agreement, locomotive 18 lease and maintenance agreement, the intellectual property license, and then the fee schedule. Yep.
Allison, can I just ask a question? So if we have changes, do you want us to, or recommendation, do you want to do your part and then we come back to the beginning and how do you guys want to handle this?
I think let's just go in chronological, and when we get to the things
Okay.
that we specifically want to call out, I'll identify those. So if you have something now, let's tackle it.
I do. Can we start back then on page 1? And I don't want to.
Yes, we can go back to page 1.
Only because that's the first page of where I had a comment.
Great.
No laughing. Leah, you'll find that my peers are like this, they like to pick on the little guy on the bench. Oh, you're supportive, that's what it is. Yeah. So I had a question in paragraph 2 and then paragraph 5. In paragraph, we talk about the commission owning the track south of Gold Hill Depot to the Eastgate Depot, but technically we own the track into the canyon to Eureka Siding, right? And I don't know if that, look at Ken, if that's the appropriate way to define the ownership of our track. And then that ties into paragraph 5. I'm wondering, do we need to acknowledge us going into the Carson River Canyon in paragraph 5? Because we talk about the tourist excursion operations on the commission's track, and we say provision for the train services originating from and returning to Carson City, but we don't acknowledge if we're just going to leave, from the depot and go down into the canyon, like Toast of the Canyon or a spirits or a wine train. So I don't know if we need to be acknowledging, 1, our track all the way into the canyon to Eureka Siding, and then in paragraph 5, acknowledging we might have excursions that would, I hope that, I want to talk about that later, but that we have excursions that are not just back and forth, right?
You are correct.
So-
I definitely would agree that for the first note, which would be paragraph 2, Gold Hill Depot to Eastgate Depot should be updated to Eureka Siding in Carson City. And then for paragraph 5, where is it between Carson City? Is there a change here? Or did you want to just be more specific on paragraph 5?
Kind of just being more specific or broader or something. Yeah. So I just don't want to limit us to only a long line option, because we also have PEX that goes up to past Halfway House, right? So I don't know, how to broaden it, but I don't want to limit us to implying we only want to run the train between, from Virginia City or Carson City to Virginia City and back.
So in the second line of paragraph 5, just change it to desires to contract with VTRR for the provision of train services on the commission's track,
Okay, I like that.
maintenance and
Yeah.
storage of locomotive 18 and the VNTRR
Okay.
IP. And then that way you've got the commission's track, which was updated in the
Up
previous
above.
paragraph.
That's perfect, yeah. And then on page 2, oh, sorry.
Before we
Jake,
go to
you-
page
yeah,
2,
sorry, yeah.
Page 1's really getting us.
yeah. Well, I just was curious if vice president is Tom's current title
Oh, good question.
of the Virginia and Truckee Railroad Company.
Question.
It seems like that may be a legacy, a
Oh,
legacy title that we may want to update.
Okay,
I have highlighted that to confirm.
Thank you.
good.
Thank
we
you.
we should put a phone number in there too.
A fax.
If he has one, we don't.
Central 494.
Got his personal cell phone number if you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. We can, I'm okay to leave the fax number out unless Tom insists, but we don't even have one. I mean, so
What kind of
maybe we can delete the lines. Yeah.
kind of a commission are we?
Yeah. Wow. We're not a throwback to historic.
I've got a lot of red on page 1, guys.
I know. And there's like 40 pages on this thing. So
All right,
Okay.
so we're deleting
The fax
edits that I've
lines.
got. We're going to check the title for Tom Gray. We're going to add a phone number. We're going to remove the fax line. I've got Eureka Siding here identified. And then in paragraph 5, we're going to add in the commission's track.
change it to say, yeah, on the
Yes.
commission's track. Page 2, unless anybody has something on 1.
Last chance here.
Okay, so my one issue with attachment CC, because as I understand it, we're not changing structurally the way that we're gonna pay Tom. We're paying flat fees, right? So
Correct.
there's not a per person, there's not a revenue split or anything like that. So I would not be comfortable referring to this as a train services agreement. I feel this needs to be referred to as a charter services agreement, because that's what a charter services agreement is. Whether 2 people ride or 200 people ride, we're paying the same cost. I'd be comfortable for this train services agreement if there was a revenue split or a share, right, on a per rider basis. And I see this noted, throughout the whole document, because it keeps referring back to CC, and I just feel moving forward, let's call it what it is. So I don't know, it's a hang up for me. I'll just be frank about attachment CC. So I'd like to see it referred to as a charter services agreement.
Personally, I don't have a preference either way. I mean, I think we know what he's doing, and if we're more comfortable calling it a charter, and we didn't have that conversation with Tom, but
Mhm.
I think, yeah, we're not changing what we're doing, we're just changing
Right.
what we're calling it.
Yeah, just bringing the agreement name in line with how we're paying him on a per run basis, right? That those flat 6250 or whatever. So I'm just throwing these out for consideration. And then on 5, my only concern on 5A, we talk about all the billings for the dates of services prior to July 1st must be submitted to the commission no later than the first Friday in August. But because Story County doesn't have a 13th or a 14th accounting period, if we submit them in August, they aren't going to get put back into the prior fiscal year. And to be honest with you, I don't remember the cutoff. Like this year, I feel like it was like maybe the first
It's the
run.
first or the second run into I think it's the first run, which would be
Yeah.
2 weeks into the
Yeah.
new fiscal.
So maybe we could just modify that a little bit around the way that, because we want to pay June, out of the prior fiscal year, right? We don't want it to be a part of the subsequent next fiscal year. So maybe just acknowledging the invoices will be submitted prior to the first accounts payable run or something along those lines. Or if it's the second one, I don't remember, but I think it's the first is my recollection.
Is there any reason we wouldn't say prior, or any reason we wouldn't use the July 1 date?
Just in case you have a train run on June 30th, depending on how the
How the
weekends
fall.
fall.
Yeah,
So,
I'm fine with doing like the second Friday in July.
perfect, yeah.
Instead of the first Friday in August, the second Friday in July.
Yep.
because that AP run would be due that Monday.
It's probably the second.
Well, and again, that all depends on, it's every 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
it fluctuates. But I think that she said, if I recall, that we could do the second run. It was the second set of checks, but I think it was the first full run for July is what the cutoff was.
Okay. So we'd be safe with the second Friday in July.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool,
Okay. Noted.
thank you. I'm only saying thank you because I figured you're gonna go.
Oh, you'd
on
like,
to
I can go
page
move forward
3.
now.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
yeah, yeah. I don't have any more changes on page 1 or
Great.
2.
Glad we have established that. We have no notes for page 3 unless otherwise noted by the commission at this point. On page 4, same. Page 5, same.
Yeah, 5, I would just say where we say, anywhere in the document, we do a control H replace train services agreement. I prefer it says charter services agreement. but
I did note that on
yeah, okay.
page
Thank you.
1.
Thank you. And can I ask you a question then? On 7, that's going to, like on this page, we'll add the letter that Mike signed, right? That's the plan there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought I pulled it into the PDF. I must not have.
Yeah, well, I think it's okay because we know what we're talking about, but like on the way that it printed for me, B got shifted after some of the other documents in the packet. So like the insurance on ours, it's blank, but then a few pages later when we get there is the actual attachment. And I think somehow the letter just didn't make its way into the overall PDF. It just probably got dropped out when you were combining all the files together, I'm thinking, so.
Yes.
But basically, for the record, that's the letter from our previous legal counsel, Mike Rowe, that gave us the permission, right, to not have to do a formal RFP. So it was considered to be a sole source for this new contract.
Sorry, I'm going through this right now. I thought I had combined these in numerical because the way we combined it was separate documents. So yes, you are correct that it will flow as noted on the schedule on page 4. Okay, so with that said, we can go chronologically based on the pages that you're looking at, which would jump us around, or we can just say, okay, we're going to hit insurance when we get to that page. If that's
You mean like do the attachments in order? I'm totally fine with that, yeah.
okay, you guys
That's
flipping,
easier for
okay, flipping
everybody,
pages?
Or do you want to use the actual page numbers in here? Yeah,
Okay.
let's do the attachments then.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
So the sole source determination memo referenced on page 7 is a PDF of the document provided by Michael Rowe, which will be added in. And then the insurance schedule, if you'll flip down, is actually, it would be page 22 of the packet itself. This is part of one of our questions presented to the commission, which is essentially the question is, who decides what the deductible should be on the insurance on attachment BB. Lori recommended that we include a deductible, but we're not sure what the value should be. And so we do have the 5 million aggregate, but we've also got, should the subsequent levels also be higher, or who determines what those should be? And so that is one of the questions for the commission.
Gee, thanks, guys, for leaving that beauty hanging out there. Well, so these numbers, the 5111, is this the current? I'm trying to, I don't have my computer, but is this what's on the current one that ends later this month? Is it 5111 or is it 522?
I can look at it right now.
Or no, is it 5112?
Just give me one second.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where those number. I remember the 5 million one was, we had previous discussion on that. I'm not an insurance person myself, so I don't know if the 111 is okay, is sufficient. And then the question about the deductible / retentions, you're wanting to know, like, is $1,000, is it $5,000? That's what we're trying to, did Lori have a recommendation?
Not really. It was more of it's a commission decision.
Yeah.
And the question is, okay, so how do we determine what that is as a
Oh,
commission, as a
geez.
whole?
We tried to get answers to,
Okay.
to both of those highlighted areas from her recommendation perspective, but we didn't. And so, yeah, I think looking at what we had, I believe these are the current numbers. We'll confirm that. I honestly don't know if there should be a request for an increase or not, or where that deductible should lie. So we just thought,
No, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at Jim. Jim, have you ever dealt with anything like this on a, okay, oh, Jim's looking. He's got the processing going down there on his machine, so.
I'm currently looking through the old agreement, and I don't actually see numbers laid out on the document that I have. That doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't an attachment
Yeah, it was
that wasn't combined into this.
on the original, or
On the
yeah,
original.
you're right, it is a separate insurance schedule, and I know where it is on our server, but I obviously can't get to it, so.
and we could just match that, make sure that we're matching what that is. And, again, I'm assuming that there wasn't a deductible on that, or Lori would have offered that up, but we could certainly include a deductible amount.
I'd be fine with, using the numbers as they were. I don't think there was a C on the current version, so for deductible amounts myself, I don't recall that, but.
Well, and if we're talking about practical impact, does it matter to us? If he chooses a high deductible policy, the deductible would still fall to him as well, would it not? So,
Maybe we could take C off, just let him do that through his own insurance company?
yeah, I'm just, as a practice, I'm not a fan of legislating things that don't really matter. I'm sure there's a better way to say that, but that's what I really mean, so.
No, that's fair.
Also, in talking with Tom and his attorney, he may say, yeah, this is what mine is, and I'm fine with including that. So maybe we should have him be part of that conversation as well.
Agreed. Okay, so we
So
leave
the-
it. Go ahead, Jim, sorry, yeah, go
So
ahead.
the state basically has for standardized contract, or standard service contracts, 2111. So the 5111 is consistent with that. The other thing that the state mentions in they have a manual on the risk management website. I have to get back to it. For contracts that provide for vehicle storage, transport, and repair or maintenance services, there is a garage liability and garage keeper's liability policy that we probably should require him to have as, since we're paying $1,400 a month to store this thing, I think he should be insuring the garage liability. So there is this, it is on, and I can download this and send it to Allison.
Mhm.
But it's on page 50 of this manual. And it talks about a $2 million, $1 million garage liability and a $100,000 garage keeper's provision. And
On
so I
what
think
page
those
did
are,
you say that was?
what's that?
On what page?
Page 50 of what I'll send you. But I think because we're going to be paying and storing it up there, I think that we should require that in our contract. It does not talk about deductibles in this. And so I think the deductible is what Tom has in his policy, I think is fine. The other thing that we need to be is an additional insured, and I don't remember if this was in that document, but the commission needs to be an additional insured on his policy.
And that is included here
It
under
is, okay.
subsection A.
I didn't
yeah.
see it.
Thank
So essentially, we're looking at this, the garage keeper liability would be
One more bullet point.
one more number, really, because we've got commercial liability, workers' comp liability, professional liability, then we would have a number 4.
Yeah, so that, after 3, the professional liability, you would have a 4 and a 5 garage keeper or garage liability and a garage keeper's
Oh, it's two
Two.
separate
It's two separate,
things.
yes.
2 separate
Okay.
sections.
And garage liability, yep, and then garage keeper liability. Yeah, I like that. I've learned something new today. This is great. Thanks, Jim.
Is garage keeper a viable career path?
Are you worried about the upcoming election? What's going on here?
No, it might be something I'd like to do in retirement. I don't know. I
Okay.
just-
Maybe I would too. Yeah, somebody look into that. I mean, not on the clock, of course, but
And I
Yes.
don't know if this is also the place to talk about, I think we mentioned, we might have highlighted it elsewhere. One of the things that came up in our conversations was that, in addition to our 18 being stored at Tom's garage, there's also some of his equipment stored on our track. And so, as far as liability for that, I don't know if that needs to be addressed in the insurance policy that, make sure that he's covered for that.
Or,
So because we are not charging him, I think he should maintain all liability for stuff that he is parking on our track or property. And if he doesn't want to do that, then we can reversely charge him storage fees for putting it on our property. And then at that point, we would have to have the same type of insurance to cover that. But I think because he is storing it free of charge on our property, it's up to him to cover any liability that relates to that.
well, and I was gonna ask if it's more appropriate to some sort of waiver of liability, so it just makes it clear that we're not covering it. As opposed to dictating terms of insurance on equipment that's not ours anyway.
So add an additional clause here with the waiver of liability for the equipment stored on our track.
For any equipment stored on our truck.
Got it.
there was something, because I had a note about that, about the equipment. Mihaela, you guys talked about it somewhere.
Yeah, it's, we will
Where
get
is-
there.
It was weird. I think it was under
Regarding
the
the
fee schedule.
18.
Is it, oh, is it under the 18? Oh, yeah,
It's
under
page
11.
13. Oh, under 11?
Well, so under page, I don't know now, we're on page 10, sorry, but, and then it's VTRR shall, but it's number 11. Be solely responsible for any damage or destruction to the VTRR's equipment, which the commission in its sole discretion agrees to allow to be stored on the commission's track or property. Should we have a list of those pieces of equipment that are on the track now? Should we be approving if there are future pieces? Like, so we have some kind of an idea of what's, because they're all on the sidings, I think. Donovan and up probably, right? I mean, I don't know, Gabe, you or Ken could jump in, but where everything is stored and. All on Donovan, okay. I mean, do we need to know that, or is I get what you guys are saying, but is this covering us, or do we still need to add something under the insurance? Because this is underneath the charter services agreement where we're talking about the equipment storage.
I don't think it hurts to have it in both places since we're specifically talking about insurance under Schedule BB. I mean, that's my
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that, I guess I'm not worried about a list. We're saying that he can store things there. He's solely responsible for them. And that might change out from time to time, depending on what he's doing. So
True.
I don't know that we need to itemize them in a list.
Yeah, but possibly just beefing up this particular paragraph right here to not, I mean, it says be solely responsible, but maybe we take it even a step further to a hold harmless or something like that.
Yeah. Yep, that waiver thing you're talking about. But I do like it being under the insurance too, because, what happened if, a ballast car or something breaks loose, from up there, so, okay.
Okay, so
Do you have what you need, or Mihaela, you guys understand? Okay.
Stephanie does. Okay, then
Okay.
we're good.
Okay.
Between
I wasn't
Stephanie
sure
and I,
who's-
we got it.
I'm trying to take notes, but, okay.
I got lost on the pages just now,
Because we're
but
fixing two sections, one. Yeah, okay.
okay. I'm just gonna put here, ask Stephanie.
When all else fails.
I was gonna say, do we start paying Stephanie a storage fee for keeping all of this in her head?
We can't do that because she's dutifully bound to do this as the deputy city manager. Yes, yes.
Right.
I wish we could.
I was going to say we can't do that because she often doesn't remember things.
Okay.
She does accept boxed wine though, so. As a
For the
yeah.
record.
Yeah, for the record.
Okay, so we're good on insurance, which means we would flip back to page. It's 11 of the packet. On the bottom footer, it's going to say page 9, I believe. Attachment CC.
And I just had a question on Commission Shell number 3 on page 9. We included this comment about, he shall not access or utilize any track constructed in phases 3B, C, and 4 without prior approval of the commission. I'll just admit, I don't know exactly what that means.
Eureka.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Oh.
No idea. I'm
Oh,
just throwing it
past
out
that? Okay. Oh, Ken, yeah.
We have previously designated Phase 3 as the work in the canyon. Phase 3A
okay.
is the piece of track that was constructed down through Eureka.
Okay.
And 3B was gonna take us basically down to
Chinese wall.
the next location, if
Okay,
you will,
okay.
which is where the proposed balloon track
Okay.
is. Is that really relevant at this point? Probably not.
Okay. Well, thank you for just explaining what that means. Okay, thank you.
Probably just future construction.
Gotcha. That doesn't exist, yeah. That would be bad.
Yeah.
That takes us back to the insurance situation. We've gone off the rails then. Okay. And then,
Are we going to change that so that it says to remove the references of the phases and just say utilize any future constructed track or something of that manner? Since I don't know that it's written down what the
Constructed track?
phases are.
yet to be constructed, yeah, okay, or is yet to
Okay.
be, yeah, I'm fine with that, yeah. I just didn't know what that exactly meant,
Well, and I would imagine 5 years from now, there might also be a question of what these phases are.
Sure.
So I think if we
Sure.
just,
Or since this actually relates to something that was previously decided, define 3B,
Somewhere.
track into the canyon
Yeah.
beyond Eureka to whatever. 3C is from there to there, and 4 is probably back into town, right?
Gold Dust West.
I better call my board chair.
4 was the Eastgate
A train
Depot
to come in.
expansion.
Yep.
So,
I do like, maybe we, Mihaela, do you agree with defining what the 3 phases are?
I do, and
Okay.
also I wanted to suggest that we should move paragraph 3 to the next page as paragraph 5, because it's something that commission and VTRR agree on. It should not be under commission, the commission shall. I noticed that when I read it this morning. So
Okay.
there will be some changes defining what those are. I don't know if there's maps or anything that we can add.
Ken, could you
Jen?
maybe email us the descriptions and then we'll
yeah,
just
we've
insert
got
it?
maps and pictures and whatnot. Those have been produced and that's easy. So
Yeah.
those go way back. So, just a map, is that what we're looking at?
Do we want to include the map or just the description, like,
It's hard to decide without reviewing the map
okay,
first to
if
see.
you
We
could
don't
send
wanna
it to us,
overcomplicate
then we
things.
can decide.
Is it a good map?
Clay was asking if it was a good map, Ken. That was, it's a great map. Does that help?
The mood in
Determine how
here
good that map
today.
is, to be quite honest.
I have never got lost on it.
Not yet, you haven't. Don't jinx yourself. Okay,
And Allison will also move it to the next page as paragraph 5, under the commission and VTRR agree.
Okay, I put move paragraph.
Good, great.
No. Sorry. I have it noted here though, so I can just do an email follow-up with you.
are you
Okay.
okay to move to 10? Page 10?
Page 10, yes. We're not on 10 yet. Yes.
Actually, if I may,
Okay.
just when I read it this morning, Mihaela Niagos for the record, it just seems to me that under VTRR paragraph 1 and 5, these two are pretty similar. I don't know if we need both of them. And basically, it refers to the obligation of VTRR to provide inspections, maintenance, testing, documentation.
Maybe just combine them if there's
Combine
a
them, it feels like
particular
5
thing.
is more in-depth,
Mhm.
and they basically refer to the same thing.
That seems fair.
Great.
Are we missing anything? I mean, I know we're broadly stating about the requirements for reporting. I mean, to try to specify every report that's required seems a bit silly, but I think we're broad enough. We say local, city, state, and federal. Or, yeah, federal, state, and local agency reporting required. Seems fair. So I have just a question on 7, so page 10, 7. We're asking VTRR to provide the commission with the most recent copy of its standard operating procedures and the safety rules for use on the commission's track. Should that be an attachment in this document? Or, I don't know that I've seen those since I've come onto the commission, so I don't know if they exist. Certainly, if we're going to say we want to have a copy of them, Ken?
I think that was put in the hopes that the VTRR would actually prepare and publish operating rules and safety rules. I have not seen any published document to those effect. So as far as I know, there are none in existence of either of those.
When we went through the contract with Tom, he didn't seem in opposition to, I mean, this was language that already existed. I
Yes.
think maybe we changed it just a smidge, but he didn't express his or inability to provide it to us. So I think we asked him to provide it. I don't know that it needs to be part of the contract, but I do think that like maybe ask him to bring it to our retreat so that we have it there and can review it, and then we have a copy of it for the commission as well.
Sure, it's a stimulating read. I would,
Is it similar to an audit?
I would agree that it probably doesn't make sense to attach it to the contract because I would anticipate that should such a document exist, documents exist, that they would be updated and modified from time to time. It'd be more of a living document. If I understand the purpose of this, it would be so that we can basically show compliance, so that if anyone asks, we say, yep, here, we got a copy of it, not necessarily because it's something that we're going to be negotiating over or what have you.
But there should be an SOP for operating on, I mean, I think this is a requirement by the FRA, is it not? I mean, so I'm a little concerned that we don't have it if it's a requirement. I don't know.
That's probably a gray area. I mean, basically, the railroad has to have operating rules. I
Okay.
don't think the FRA comes and tells you how to build those operating rules. Now, every major railroad, a lot of minor railroads and excursion railroads have operating rules. A lot of cases they adopt, there's a general nationwide document for operation, the GCOR, General Code of Operating Regulations, GCOR. And that's adopted by almost every railroad in the United States. And what they do, they adopt the general document and they said, okay, but these sections apply to our railroad in this specific location and these don't. And then they make special provisions. You can actually go on the Union Pacific Railroad website and pull down their GCOR, which is very extensive, and 80% of it would not apply to our railroad. In the hopes in the future, maybe the GCOR is adopted by the operator and with a lot of modifications made. The trick is that once you adopt those rules, you need to implement a training program. I know this was a recommendation provided by the operating folks from the FRA out of Sacramento. And I'm not trying to bash Tom. Ultimately, I think it works good to have some written rules and regulations that you can follow, that everybody needs to comply with. So far, I think it's a work in progress.
The only reason I brought up, I thought it was a requirement, is the conversation I had with that gentleman from the FRA. I think it was earlier this year, so I thought it was a requirement, so.
I do know that there is an emergency response plan because I do know that he's worked with Central Lyon County Fire on that.
Oh, good, okay. That was going to be my next question on 9, but I did have one thing on 8. Do we need to,
And 8 is highlighted.
yes, well, good. All right, then you go first this time. I don't want to.
The question on 8 is that we would like to bring forward to the commission is essentially the way that this is written. Essentially, the entire contract would potentially terminate. Do we need to specify, if it's violated, is it just the charter services agreement? Because essentially, we do have our licensing agreement in here as well. So the conversation for the commission is, should we word this differently so that we retain the licensing and essentially just the charter is terminated?
I would be in favor of that myself. I was more concerned with this latter half of the paragraph because I didn't know if we need to acknowledge Gabe being on the track, or Ken, the rail bikes, any other operations that we have. This almost seems like they're not even permitted. And it's exclusive to just VTRR authorized persons to be on our track. I thought that was very limiting.
But it's also in the section under VTRR shall, and so it's, but by virtue of it being in there as opposed to both of us, it is specifically related to them allowing
Oh,
people
okay,
who are not associated on our tracks.
okay. But how would that, Clay, how would that, who's right now, Tom is the one that allows those motor car
Right,
folks to come on and everything, so, like, how is that working? Are we limiting, now they can no longer participate? Go ahead, Ken, sorry.
Maybe it needs to be a little more explicit, and I think the fact that the implication is that you can only have one dispatcher, okay, and that is Tom.
Yeah.
But what the agreement, I think, both in the VTRR shall and the commission shall, it's a little bit vague as to who he shall allow on the track. I don't see any reference in there saying that, by the way, Tom needs to issue a permit to Gabe, get on
Right.
the track. And he won't get on the track with his high rail unless he's got a permit from Tom.
Yeah.
And that applies also to anybody else on the track.
Mhm.
The question is, the the rail bikes came up obviously after this was previously done.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, we still, I would think, unless the commission wants to do something else, have Tom maintain the dispatching requirements. He's the only
Yes.
person or his designee that it can allow occupancy of that track.
Yep.
But who is it? Is it just his? Right now, it sounds like it's only his personnel. And maybe we need to make it a little broader to say,
Yeah. That's what I have
To
other
include
comments in another section exactly about the dispatching, but yes.
VTRW, contract personnel, or in this case, the rail
Yeah.
bikes folks.
Is that not
Authorized.
covered by without the commission's prior consent? Is that not
It
included?
might be.
I
But-
was just going to state that the second part of that sentence does say without the commission's prior consent. I think there's a typo following that.
I was
I think
wondering.
it's to be to such use. But again, this is language that was carried forward from the previous contract and discussing it with Tom. He didn't express a need to make it broader for his use. We can certainly bring that back to him. But we hadn't proposed any changes to the existing contract based on the discussion with him, except for that last part where we were just concerned that because when it was a standalone document, it would be terminating the entire contract. Now that we've combined them, we don't want to terminate our intellectual property agreement
Yep.
if this provision gets enacted.
So I totally agree with you both then about not dropping all of it, but is this, so I was going to bring up the whole dispatcher piece. I mean, Tom is our dispatcher. I think that needs to be in this document, but I don't know if, Ken, do you think it needs to be an 8? Do we need to expand it, or does that
I
need to be?
think seven
or- I'm
seven
sorry,
covers it.
Yeah.
Set up the dispatch, yeah. Can you see that, Ken? I apologize. Are you able to see how 7 is worded?
I can. pull
Yes.
this up.
Would that cover us when you were talking about Gabe can't get on the track without the permit? Same thing with the rail bikes? Is that inferred, or do we just add a small sentence about the issuance of permits?
Well, again, as long as there's no problem, there's no problem. I mean, that does
Okay,
identify that he's supposed to set up a dispatch system,
yeah,
which we have more or less in place, and it's been refined a little bit over the years.
yeah.
But is it really clear that if the commission has entered into a contract with the rail bikes people, that he needs to dispatch those also? Because they're not working for him,
Correct,
and
yeah.
Gabe is not working for him.
Maybe there's something that, for our third party,
It's probably not a big deal. It's more or less been working.
mm-hmm,
Yes.
yeah. I'd like this to be tightened up a hair then. I think it should cover rail bike or leased operations of some sort, and then how, Gabe, how we would identify, I mean, you're on their maintenance, right? You're doing the track inspections, but I think we should tighten that up a little bit.
I mean, would it be something except as necessary for the provision of tourist excursion trains and commission contracted vendors or something of that matter?
Where's that? That's 7?
It's
Sorry.
it's 8, the very first sentence. It just specifies except as necessary for the provision of tourist excursion trains. We would just elaborate beyond tourist excursion trains
Mhm.
to include our vendors and contractors. But then my question comes later on in the sentence that we were talking about earlier, where it states, VTRR shall not issue or dispatch by train warrant or order to any third person to utilize the commission's track without the commission's prior consent. My question is, how is that defined? For example, with the motor cars, it's Allison, we are going to have motor car this weekend. Is that commission consent? Is that management consent? Is this a meeting consent of who can be on the track?
Excellent question. Because we don't even have any kind of agreement with those folks. I mean, what happens if they get hurt? On our, where's the insurance? Yeah.
We're added as additionally insured.
Oh, we are, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they provide that each year with their insurance.
Which is, but it is different because technically, you know, with Railbacks, we have a agreement in place. Gabe, we have a contract in place.
What
But-
about spontaneous photo shoots that aren't brought to the commission, but we're using the track, which needs
Right.
to be dispatched?
Such good questions.
Should it say commission chair, prior consent?
And which number are we in? Sorry.
8.
Oh, we're still in 8. Jeez,
yeah.
okay. Oh, I see.
My worry is that the way that it's worded, it implies that a meeting is required.
We're approving
Yeah.
someone else's use of our track.
And I think I'm okay if it said without the commission or the commission's chair's prior consent, because some of those might come up when we're out of a meeting cycle. But I would expect David would report back to us and let us know the request was made and, you know, it occurred. So at least we'd be in the know as far as what's going on, and we'd have a second check to make sure any requirements are being met.
And again, an example might be also the motorbike, excuse me, the motor car excursion that Ken runs there, you know, whether it be for whatever benefit that they do, but obviously that's a use that Tom has been authorizing and dispatching, but I think he's been coordinating with Allison to say, hey, by the way, these guys are gonna be running this weekend down to Lineham Road. And I think that works without a problem, but I believe that, yes, if that were to come up where they wanna run a special event and it's in between meeting periods, then either maybe the commission or the commission's designee could make that authorization, I don't know. Because that shouldn't be some agenda item. It's, yeah, we're good to go, everybody knows about it.
Yeah, otherwise I feel like we'd have this on there half a dozen or more times a year.
Yeah,
Just
you know.
and Ken, I have to say, Ken is really good about communicating that, and I did become aware of that like a year and a half ago, and I was like, whoa, wait a second now. Are we an additional insured? Can you please let us, 2 of us, know? But I understand what you're saying. You guys are not aware of that, so I think that's fair. After, I could let you know at the next meeting, whenever it falls, hey, by the way, Ken ran, not this Ken, but Ken with the motor car
Marty.
excursions ran a fundraising event for the veterans or whatever, you know, that he does. And so, go ahead, Jim.
So maybe we need to break 8 apart. The dispatch piece, does that really belong in section 7? Where you're already talking about setting up a dispatch, and then you go on in 8, you're already talking about dispatching again. Do we need to put 8 as just dealing with Tom and his employees and contractors and the provision for tourist excursion trains in by itself? Because this is in the section that's relating to VTRR shall.
That would make sense. So, Jim, are you wanting to, you want to take something out of 8, put it up under 7? Is that what your recommendation would be, to keep all dispatch related in 7?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me that it's here. I mean, if you read this line, the first 2 lines of section 7, it talks about ensuring collision accidents do not occur on the track between trains and between other equipment using the track. Well, that's done via this dispatch piece. And, you know, the commission can have a list of people that is approved up front and give it to Tom, and that
Sure.
provides the commission's prior consent.
Yep.
So if we
That's a good
know, we
point.
don't have to do it every single time somebody goes on there that's been on there 100 times before. We don't
Mhm.
have to approve them again. We can just approve it.
Yeah.
Here's the list of people that can get on it. And then you leave that section being, you know, except for as necessary for the provision of tourist excursion trains on the commission's track, for the commission, not allow any person other than employees or contractors of VTRR performing duties in furtherance of the excursion train operations for the commission to use, occupy, or travel on the commission's track. Period. And then both the commission and VTRR recognize the exposure to property damage, injury, and death from any unauthorized use of the commission's track by persons other than VTRR, which I would kind of take out, and that deals with the VTRR in the dispatch. So the recognition of the exposure to property damage, because again, this is VTRR shall, and so now we're doing both commission and VTRR recognizing this exposure. Does that really belong here, or does that belong in the section that is both?
Well,
Yeah.
I think the reason it's here is because it's specifically directing VTR to not issue or dispatch a train warrant or order, so on and so forth.
Right.
So it's the wherefore, which is a more general recognition, but it's the underpinnings for a specific action or lack of action that's required of VTRR.
And you can use that language in section 7. Basically, you're talking about ensuring accidents don't happen, that other damage doesn't occur. You can put that language up there that's the reason that the dispatch orders are made is because we don't want people to get hurt or accidents to happen.
I think I like that.
And then as far as violations of this provision shall be grounds for immediate termination, unless you're really willing to enforce that, I wouldn't put it in there. If you're willing to say, yeah, you break this one rule, you're done, contract's over, then what? What are we gonna do?
You've become our new
Nope.
locomotive engineer, Jim.
Nope.
Your dream has
No,
now
not my dream.
become a reality.
Could we change the shall to may, just so we have some enforceability? Again, what's the likelihood that we would pull that trigger, but just so,
Yeah. Sure. So shall becomes may in the last sentence. And then Steph, you're pulling out the middle part of that, and that'll go back up into 7. Yeah, okay. I like that.
Just to be sure that I'm following. 8 now begins at the sentence, at basically sentence number 2, right? And the first sentence is now part of 7? No?
No.
opposite,
The opposite.
actually.
Okay.
So the first sentence of 8 stays, and we're gonna change it a little bit so that it allows for contractors.
Got that.
And then the second part of 8 will go up into 7.
Glad I asked.
Mihaela, are you comfortable with that? Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. And I did add the change for commission or commission chairs, prior consent. Caught the typo in such use, and then highlighted the train services agreement to be updated. Okay. That was actually on.
That was on your
Discussion.
list.
That
yeah,
was on the
so
list.
Technically, that's your fault. That took so long, yeah. Could I just ask a question about the joint commission and VTR agree, the number 4? So we're talking about special trains, not ours, but now VTR are running a special train on our track? Is that what this paragraph is meant to address?
Any special train event approved by VTRR to operate on VTRR's track on an individual basis will only be allowed to operate to the extent that it is approved by VTRR for that individual use.
So this is protecting Tom. So anything that he allows us to do on his track is specific to that and not giving any sort of ongoing right to use the track.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yep,
It's no long, it's not talking about our track.
okay. So, okay, then, and this was a question that I wanted to ask, is that, I have to flip here, but my question was, is this separate from attachment FF, section 6?
David?
Yes.
That was written before we had the incident with the Gold Hill Historic Society and the consummate rule that was provided by the Federal Railroad Administration's legal department out of Delaware. And basically what they said was if either the VTRR or the VTRW allows more than one operator to operate on their track, you're no longer subject to or being allowed to operate under historical exemptions. You're now a full-blown short line railroad, thereby,
Okay.
you know, causing huge amount of cost and expense. And I
Okay.
think that's sort of, I'm not sure if that, you should just get rid of that paragraph. That's what it
That's-
amounts to.
Yeah,
I mean, you
what
know,
I
if
was
we have,
wondering.
if we have another operator
we're no longer,
and we
Class
just
one,
run to
yeah.
Gold Hill, we're fine.
yeah,
But as soon as we ask for our operator to run over Tom's track, he is now going to be classified as or get a violation to say you need to convert yourself to a short line railroad, which he doesn't want to do. Or
Right.
vice versa, that'd be the same problem. So I don't know that paragraph shouldn't just go away.
okay. Well,
So the way I read that paragraph says that any special train event approved by VTRR to operate on their track, meaning a commission event on VTRR's track,
Yep.
Yes.
does not provide any permanent use of VTRR's track. I don't see any problem with having that section in there. They're just saying that if Tom's organization allows us to run a special event train on their track, it's not a permanent grant of use of that track.
so then
I
could we
just
add the
leave
word
it alone.
commission?
Huh?
Or should we add the word commission? I took it the opposite. I thought it
No,
was.
no, no.
yeah,
It's any special event train approved by VTRR to operate on their track. That means the commission's trains.
Right.
Okay, so then I go back to my question because in
In
Attachment.
section, and that's the opposite in section 6 in FF. That is Tom's short line running on our track cannot interfere with our running to Virginia City.
okay,
Jim is correct. An example of 4 would be the special event that we had in October, where
Yes.
we ran to Gold Hill
okay.
in the evening.
And you're saying we don't need to say any commission's special train event approved? No, okay.
It's all legal language. Only Mahela understands it.
She's so smart.
I don't see a problem adding the word commissions.
Well,
We know that that's what it means.
does it get messy if there's a contracted third party? We have they're doing an event where we're providing a portion of services and they're not. To me, the kind of the openness of it makes the most sense.
Clay's right, because we could potentially have special event trains that I'm not involved with, other than opening up the depot and sending them on their way.
Where we kind of facilitate the event, but it's not really it's not a commission event.
Is this for what I need in April with the Twain train?
Mm-hmm.
So this allows us to do just
Well,
that?
that's Clay's point, that if we leave it without the commission's name there, it covers that event. By adding the word commission implies that it's a commission-sponsored event.
Which would not include the 3 that we've done this year, you're saying?
Gray area.
Well, selfishly, I really want to run this Twain train in April as a part of our whole Mark Twain
Right.
Day, so.
But this paragraph does not grant permission to run on Tom's tracks. This is simply a caveat protecting him so
To
that
say
when he
no.
does, it doesn't imply that we get to continue running on his track beyond that permission. And so I believe that us monkeying with it may raise a red flag for him, going, what are you guys trying to do? When I feel perfectly comfortable with the wording as it is, which is, yeah, when he gives us permission, it's for that use specifically. When he gives someone related to us permission, it's for that use specifically. Someone marginally related to us, it's for that use specifically. And, you know, and he doesn't have to worry about someone taking adverse possession of his track, you know, and occupying it and saying they own it.
I'm fine with that then. Okay.
Great.
Okay. And then I guess so Jim, you're saying the inverse is true then in section 6 for the exemptions under FF. That's us granting him permission to run his trains beyond the extent of the track that he owns. Okay. And that's just
And theoretically, you could put another section in here right below this that basically says what's in section 6, that any trains or any permission given by the commission to use the commission's track does not imply ownership of the commission's track or ongoing use of the commission's track.
yeah.
For
could have it- you
non-commission
could-
business.
Yeah, you could literally put another section in right below 4 that's the inverse of 4, that any use of the commission's track is approved for a specific purpose, and it does not imply that will be a continued use of the commission's track for that purpose. I mean, you could literally have that and then get rid of section 6 in the section
In
FF.
the train schedule, it's or FF.
Hmm.
I would like, I think I agree with that. The only reason is, what if Tom what if he had a special event train? I don't want to exclude him if he's, if we don't have something going on, but we don't want to exclude him from doing something up top, right?
Which is already a case. He's done some special event trains that haven't been involved in the commission.
Right.
May just come down to scales, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what 6 says, right? That's,
Yeah.
6 basically says, as long as it doesn't interfere with us.
Well,
he
6
can-
says Hayward, I think.
6 is Hayward, yeah, specifically. But we're not granting permission, though.
But
He's
I
not-
think that the other thing is that we could at that point then stop it. We could prevent him from going back. It does not, right now, the way 6 is worded is unless we are running a train, he can do whatever he wants on our track.
Mhm.
If you
Pretty
put a
open.
provision in very similar to number 4, that is, if we say you can use it unless we say you can't use it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a better thing. and
Bringing the
then-
2 in line, I think,
Yep.
makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Well, I love it. So that answer addresses my question, or my next question then. So yeah, let's dump 6, go back into 4, or create 5 or whatever, right? But remove from FF and put it in, I don't know where we're at, CC?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're adding a number 5. We are removing section 6 from FF.
Yeah, and it's mutually beneficial language then, right? We're just, yeah, okay. Seems fair. Or mutually restrictive, yeah, you're right. But I think that in fairness to both parties, I feel that that's appropriate.
Okay. I'm jumping back to what's listed as page 11.
Real quick, we had already added a 5, had we not?
Oh, so,
Something that we pulled out
okay,
from one of the upper sections.
We should make that,
That's
we should make
6.
that 6.
yeah. And then this becomes 5, so it follows, yeah. Way to be.
It's great because I just put add section, so we're good.
Okay.
Don't you love negotiating
It's
contract terms during the
Thrilling.
public meeting? Lovely.
Oh,
We have
anyone
lunch
want to run
coming at some
polar
point, or
tonight?
dinner, I mean. Gee whiz.
Okay. We are to page 11, page 13 of the packet. 18 lease and maintenance. I don't have anything specifically to call out on this page.
Oh, Ken. go
Actually, I had one more that might have related to the previous page. As far as the accident reporting, basically, you and/or Lee are designated to the FRA as the safety reporting official because of that weekly or monthly report that we do, okay?
Mhm.
So that means that safety reporting official is the one that's responsible for filing any accident reports with the FRA in accordance with their accident standards. There's a whole big manual on when you have to file an accident report.
Right, as
But
noted
here
in
it's
one.
indicating that Tom's gonna do that. typically that would be the home railroad that would do that reporting, i.e. us, not Tom. So how do we want to resolve that? In other words, if you have an accident involving more than $25,000 worth of physical damage, you have to evacuate the train, or you have an injury, that requires an immediate, if not,
So I'm seeing it listed under the commission shall. Number 1.
okay, where are you looking on?
It's page 9, number 1, the commission shall provide the required regular track structure, right-of-way and crossing signal inspections, maintenance operations, according to FRA safety standards, applicable regulations to the state.
Yeah, what I'm saying, that may be in conflict with under VTRR shall what is it, 5, I think? Yes, VTRR in the last paragraph is in there, and prepare necessary action reports to federal, state, and local agencies as required. So who does it? And that was the confusion I had. I think I saw that initially under the commission shall, the first statement, and then also the railroad shall.
I'm reading that these reports, though, in number 5 is in reference to inspections, maintenance, testing, documentations, and reports for locomotives.
Well, what I'm saying is prepare necessary.
accidents.
Accident reports, and that's specifically what I'm talking about, is the accidents reports.
So the way I'm reading it is VTRR shall prepare the reports and the commission will file the reports. At least that's the way it looks like it reads right now.
Well, I mean, that's fine. Recognize that you're responsible, okay?
Yeah.
And if they're gonna say you did a willful violation, that the violation's gonna come towards this railroad and that individual. Okay, so this is to protect you too. Who does that? And it's not an option. You have someone hurt, you gotta make a report. Goes back down to when we had the injury at Eureka a couple of years back. And there was a train operation injury and someone was knocked, had an injury and they got taken care of. And Tom apparently filed the report with the Federal Railroad Administration. My contention at the time was that's great, but it's actually our responsibility as the owner of the railroad to file that report.
And I'm with Clay. I believe that that's exactly what this says. Because if you read the last sentence of number 5, it says VTRR further agrees to immediately notify the commission in writing of any derailments or other accidents that occur on or adjacent to the commission's track and prepare necessary accident reports to the federal, state, and local agencies as required. And then under number 1 for the commission shall ensure the commission is required to ensure that all necessary inspections, maintenance, testing, documentations, and reports for locomotives, rolling stock, and other equipment, accidents, and such other matters as may be required by local, state, or federal agencies are filed by the person or entity with whom the commission contracts to operate the tourist. So again, the number 1 is the commission shall ensure that they're filed. Number 5 says that the railroad has to prepare them because they know what happened.
Okay. Well, what about the monthly reports, which we are preparing? The ridership reports.
Well, you can prepare them and file them, but specifically, if you're talking about an accident report, there's a requirement that they help prepare it, but not file. They don't
Notify.
necessarily have the
Yeah,
approval to file it.
And maybe we can clean up that language at the end of the 5 there just simply by changing to, it says, prepare necessary accident reports to federal, it's a little bit of a non sequitur. Maybe it's prepare them for, so there's no implication that they're actually giving them, but they're preparing the reports and delivering them to us for filing.
Okay. And my concern is that if we have to do a report, somebody needs to file it. And
Right.
if you miss one of those, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But
well,
we are doing that.
Yeah, but there's
Accident report.
a simple solution to this,
Not
and
the
that is
monthly reports we're doing.
you put it into your standard operating procedures that accidents aren't allowed, and then you don't have to deal with this ever. So,
Wow. Couldn't you have led with that, Clay? Okay, so with the
The
small.
only issue I think I see in 5 is it says VTR shall file such reports as required and provide copies of such reports to the commission. I think that's the language that needs to get cleaned up. If we're the filer and they're the preparer, then 5 should deal with preparation and 1 should deal with filing.
yeah, well, I think there are 2 things covered under 5. One
Then
is
split them out.
inspections, maintenance.
Then split them
Yes.
out. Then say the inspections are done and filed all these other reports are prepared in the commission files. Then you split 5 into 5 and 6, and we have like 8 sections in this section now.
We're just making this document longer. Yes.
I agree with Jim. I think you just need to pull out accidents. All the other ones are Tom files. It's just the accidents that would fall under us.
Okay.
But Tom does need to report that to us and report his numbers to us, which he does.
So we're, just to clarify, we're only making a change to 5, splitting it, but 1 under us is not being changed. Are we all okay with 1 commission shall? Yeah, okay. That's
I just
all.
have the one note to be a little bit more descriptive in language, saying like we prepare for
Oh, yeah,
local,
okay,
state, and
okay.
federal agencies.
Okay.
Okay, great.
If I may, so going back to paragraph 1 and how under VTRR shall, is there a difference between 1 and 5 then?
Yes, the difference would be, it's kind of two sets of reporting. One is the numbers, the accidents, things like that, that Tom provides the information to us and then we file it. The second would be reports regarding maintenance, locomotives, inspections, et cetera, in which Tom needs to file those, but we're now pulling out accidents, making it its own bullet, specifying that Tom needs to provide the information to us, and then under 1, we then file it.
But I think Mihaela's point stands that the beginning of 5 basically duplicates 1. And it may not be a matter of splitting 5, it may be a matter of just eliminating the duplication, and then what's left is that 5 covers accidents, accident reporting, and 1 covers routine reporting and filing of inspections and what have you. There does seem to be duplication. I'm seeing it.
So this way we don't need to make a new paragraph 6, if we can maybe combine the beginning of 5 with 1 and then have.
Jim was trying to make this document
I know,
longer, Clay.
I know,
You're
I'm
not
just-
helping him.
I was going to point out that I'm seeing a force from this end of the room that's trying to consolidate and a force from this end of the room that maybe unintentionally is expanding out.
Budget people versus legal people.
I would agree with Clay. I think 1 pretty well covers it and maybe take some of that verbiage that's duplication in 5 with the normal reports and just leave a separate section for accident reports, which is 5. And again, if Tom prepares those and we make sure they get filed, that's fine. By the way, there's also a situation, if you do exceed those thresholds, you're supposed to call the 800 number.
Mhm.
I think you've got that written down someplace. I've never had to use it, hopefully never have to, so.
Well, and I had thought we had already talked about 1 and 5. Mihaela had brought that up earlier, and so I thought we were already done with that piece. So then we're going back and revisiting it. So
All good.
I'm going to lean on Mihaela and Stephanie for this one. And we're going to move to page 11, I believe we're on.
For attachment DD.
Correct.
the only thing I would do is I would take out in number 8, I would take out the dollars and move that to section F. All the dollars, it should be in section F. I don't want
Thank you.
dollars in anywhere but section F.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you mean attachment FF, not section, but attachment FF? Yeah. Could I just ask a question about 4? So this is Tom paying us each time, right? The 18 is being put into use. So that will be subject to the negotiation prior to each March as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. That's
I
all
also,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I
My
also
apologies.
noticed under costs, I will just take out some of the language under paragraph A and B. Like under A, take out the last words, shall be paid by VTRR, because they're covered under the sentence where it says costs.
Yeah.
And also B, take out the beginning of the sentence, VTRR shall be responsible for, because it basically just lists the costs. That's an oversight that I,
We'll take that off your wages and compensation.
I thought you all got paid by the word. That's why there were so many more words.
Colleague for Visit Carson City, jeez, I want a new DA. On page 12, under 13C, are we addressing any penalty, you know, if the 18 is not ready and able to be used anywhere? I mean, to be
Not
stuck
to
then
my
with a diesel?
knowledge.
Or, okay. That's something that you both may have discussed with Tom, you know?
I
at any
think, I want to
point, or-
say in FF, it does specify that Tom can swap out equipment. I know it's referenced somewhere. There's a penalty if he cannot run, period. But if there's a delay or anything like that, so it'd be under section 5 of the Charter Services Agreement.
I only bring that up just given people want the steam engine, you know, and if Tom's responsible for the maintenance and ensuring that it's there, ready to be used, I mean, does that impact then what we're paying because we are not providing that steam engine experience for people, or?
One of the things that we talked about that we were going to add was, or discuss in February is, you know, what maintenance is required each year. And so, you know, I think some of it falls on us to be making sure we're asking the questions as to what the 18 needs and providing the ability for him to do it. And then I guess if he doesn't have something that he needs, or there's just a random, you know, failure, we do have the opportunity to swap it out. So
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the way that it is.
Yeah. In the event of an unexpected breakdown of the equipment, VTRR shall make every reasonable effort to provide a redundancy backup. If we're, I guess on my side as working with him, I don't know enough about the 18 for him to say X, Y, and Z doesn't work. We got to use the diesel for me to have that conversation with him. So we're relying on his expertise.
Do we charge a different ticket price for diesel versus steam?
We do not.
Okay.
Part of that is intentional because sometimes it's a last minute swap. Okay, so I'm scrolling back up to page. A lot of pages. Okay, 12? Is that where we're at?
No, I think 13 now.
Okay.
Can I ask a
Yes.
question on number 2 repairs? It says VTR agrees to provide an annual update on repairs. Do we need to include a deadline, like when it has to be provided, like at the last commission meeting or before? It doesn't matter.
That is a good
Is
question.
that an issue? I don't know.
I feel like, didn't Tom, we got a great update, I want to say 2 months ago from him, maybe?
It may have been
was?
last month, actually.
Or, yeah.
I don't know if it's,
You just
would be
want to
helpful.
specify, like, do you want to, are you thinking it should be after the operating season, or?
I don't know. It's just, it's very general. And what happens if he doesn't in
Mm.
December?
Mhm.
3 years down the road.
Well, I think we're going to fall into a new pattern with the fact that we're going to be reviewing the fee schedule annually before our budget. And I think that gives us both the opportunity to find out what we need to budget for, but also to find out what what was
Sure.
completed in the previous year. So I kind of feel like we could note that as far as the timing, but I think that's going to be the trigger for us to start having those conversations on a regular annual basis so that it doesn't get away from any of us.
So are you saying you want that to fall in line with the review of the schedules by March 1st? Or not?
I mean, I don't have a preference. I think if by default it will. If
Oh,
if we
okay.
don't get an annual report prior to having that conversation,
Mhm.
I think we're going to have it when we're talking about the budget and what needs to be done.
True.
the
So
next
we
year.
know what to budget
Mhm.
for from a maintenance perspective.
Mhm.
Okay. So Michaela, I think that's almost dictated, as Stephanie said, based on our preparation of the budget and when we do all the schedules in, Jan, Feb, and then approve them at the February meeting.
So we don't want to add a deadline because we want the flexibility to have it
Yeah.
when needed during the year. Okay.
Yeah, because what if something came up and then, we blow a boiler? I mean, then we're waiting until the following year to even discuss it. So I mean, frequency might be better, especially if we have to augment our budget or whatever, to be able, hey, Tom, you said something went awry with the 18. What is it? We augment the budget. So we could have him come in a couple times a year if needs be.
Blowing boilers will also be prohibited in our standard operating procedures. That's not something we really want to do.
We have a fifth on that, I think. Yes, Leah? So you guys had 14A in yellow. Is that the third item you wanted to discuss?
Yes. The question here is,
I think
do we
were
need
just-
any changes to the definitions of repairs and maintenance? Is that the right one?
No, I
No.
think 14A is what we were looking at, and it's the VTRR shall store locomotive 18 in at least as secure and protected location as VTRR's other locomotives in VC. And I think the reason that we highlighted this was just because we wanted to add something about the storage now being indoors because we're paying for that. And so that it's not, and I don't imagine that it would be left somewhere else, but since we are paying for the storage building, I think that we should modify it to say VTRR shall store locomotive 18 indoors and maybe take out the other part or just add indoors in the storage facility.
I agree. I'm seeing head nods for the record. Great, we're going to add indoors to 14A.
And this is the new building that he's constructing, right? Where the 18 is going to be
Correct. It is.
staged
It
out.
currently is indoors in his current.
Yeah.
Don't know the proper term for it. Shop.
Yeah, or engine house.
Very
or-
scientific.
Yeah.
In his
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
Engine house.
Engine house.
Yeah.
We got
Where
the
were
jargon
you, Mahela,
now.
on that one? From shop to engine house. Come on.
So yes.
Okay.
Great. Anything else on page 13? Great. Page 14, we go into our intellectual property license. As Stephanie discussed at our last meeting, there wasn't really any changes to this one. It was just really execution of things that were already in the contract. So we do not have anything specified for us to talk about unless otherwise noted by a commissioner at this point. Of course,
I
David
might
Peterson,
have
go
something.
right
Thank you.
ahead.
So I'm a little concerned about the use of the word shall in section 2 under terms and then, or double I, terms and then number 2. The commission shall always market, advertise, and promote his short line. I'd like to suggest we say may. I mean, I'm uncomfortable with the entire sentence, to be honest with you, but
It almost makes me question the definitions of market, advertise, and promote.
exactly.
Because currently, it has a permanent place on our website in 2 different locations, a button on the main page as well as a location, its own
Right.
page within the website, both leading back to his website.
Which I'm totally comfortable with that, but this would imply we've got money behind, like, we're actually running paid
Correct.
advertising to promote the short line, which is not us. So, I just troubled when
Yeah.
I read that.
Does that next section though, where it says including at minimum, it's comparable schedule, website and phone number, I guess is that we're doing that, so,
Yeah, but maybe we just soften the wording. So instead of changing out shall, maybe it's, instead of market, advertise, and promote, it's include, acknowledge, and whatever, you know what I mean? So
I
it's,
like that.
Yeah, yeah, would you be comfortable
and
with something like
reference,
that? Yeah.
include, acknowledge, and reference,
Yeah.
something like that. Because it has the specificity after that.
Mhm.
Because I agree, it's a little bit, it implies proactive action
Mhm.
Yeah.
to further his business.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm almost even comfortable with it saying the commission shall always market VTRR short line because we do that. It's right on our website.
via inclusion, acknowledgement, and reference on VTRailway.com.
So removing
something.
advertise and promote, which are very proactive, whereas market,
Yep.
Nebulous.
You may also want to eliminate the section that talks about the Carson City Canyon Loop between, which was supposed to read between Draco and Eastgate. It's sort of redundant at this point, so.
Mm-hmm.
what number is that?
That's still term 2, number 2, or
number-
II.
Number 2, yes.
Yeah,
Same paragraph. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of.
it's in
bizarre, though.
parentheses, Allison.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. And then term 10, or under terms, number 10. What is this? We're agreeing if somebody took over during this 5 years from Tom, that we would pay Tom 5% of the gross revenue from the tourist railroad ticket sales? Is that how I'm understand? Because I certainly don't like that. I don't understand why we would do that if somebody else was
It's
to-
basic, from what I'm understanding, it's if the commission sells the track and a third party comes in, that third party is still under obligation to VTRR. That's the way I'm reading it.
Yeah, I think,
Well, I thought it was if somebody replaced Tom since he's the operator.
Takes over operation of the commission's railroad.
yeah, yeah, which they're broader issues as far as access and permissions and things, and I think this is, being reclassified as a short line and whatever else, and so I think this is just referencing, were that to happen, they would still be bound under this IP agreement, which I don't know. Seems like a distinction without a difference, because it's not gonna happen.
No, I know. It can be removed. I'd like to see it removed personally, but
I think the original concept would be if another operator, again, was hired by the commission, and they're gonna run all the way to Virginia City, and then Tom wanted a cut of that revenue. But because of the fact that we can't do that.
because then we become the commercial, railroad.
Exactly.
Well, and not only that, but with us restructuring this into the contract, it's somewhat redundant, right?
Yeah,
Like, we're signing a contract
with him.
with him, whereas this was a standalone document previously. It made sense maybe to have it as a provision of a standalone document, but yeah, I think we should propose
Removal.
a strike through on it.
Love it. See how easy this is, Allison?
I did notice an edit that I don't think got onto the final PDF, but that paragraph right after the sentence that we're referring to should actually be number 11.
But now it would be 10 because we're removing 10.
Great,
easy
yes.
that is. Yeah.
Accurate.
Yeah, we did you and Mihaela a favor. Wow, we saved money on that edit. That's great.
Thank you.
Just a question on the breach on the IP license for number 11. Was that 50? And I'm sorry that I don't remember. That was just the amount that was carried forward from, there's nothing, no basis for that. It was just on the previous
Correct.
standalone document. Okay, that's all I had, all I was wondering.
Any other edits on the, oh, we do have attachments to this one, sorry, Exhibit A. This was also carried over from the original agreement with reference to images. It was noted that this specifies yellow and green with black trim trade dress. Tom's cars have since been repainted, so I don't know that that actually applies.
I really like the way the cars look now, to be honest with you. I thought that was kind of more the original scope and
They were repainted
design.
for a movie set to be more historically accurate. That is
Yeah.
correct.
Well, maybe we just ask him if there's an update to these definitions.
Yeah.
If his branding is,
Yep. I can't even tell what the
Just-
bottom stuff is, to be honest with you. It just looks like gibberish. So I don't know after the 3 and the, I don't know what those are. So it's on my copy. I can't even tell what those are supposed to be. So
really? Surprised you can't read that.
no, yeah. It looks like Arabic or something, you know. So maybe we could get the updated logos or something from him.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Branding document, no problem.
Yeah.
I noted that.
Well, and the green and yellow is also on the next page under Exhibit B, the second bullet under types of trains.
Mm. Yeah. Cool.
I have a question. So this is, are we agreeing that on our track, I mean, we are removing the green and yellow, but say we were to hypothetically bring in other cars for a special event. We must, are we saying that we must adhere to all of these standards?
For a special commission-related special event, right?
Because this exists because we use the name. All attachments are so that we adhere to the brand associated with the name. But if there were ever, Tom still operates, but if we were to ever to maybe rent additional cars
Right.
to extend our capacity, would those cars then have to adhere to this?
We could probably ask him that question if we could add a provision that would allow for that because, well, like we said, not all of the existing adhere to it currently. So maybe there needs a little bit of a modification.
Seems fair. And just to clarify, are you talking about cars that we as the commission might purchase? That would be,
Purchase, rent,
okay, not Tom purchasing something us. Okay, that's a fair question. I guess, yeah.
so it, not operations or anything like that. It's looking at cars to rent for specific large
Yeah.
events.
It's a really interesting question because if you go to the top of the terms, what he's doing is granting us a license to use his IP. It's not an incumbent on us to use it, but if we use it, then he gets to ensure quality standards. And so it is a bit ambiguous, if you ask me. Um, because, because what if we're mixing, right? IP, non-IP cars, it doesn't really tie us that says we have to use his IP, but if we're using it in some fashion, does it? So yeah, I think it's worth clarifying that.
Okay.
As an FYI, that may go back to the original cars that the commission had purchased, which were Southern Pacific Peninsula commuter cars that ran between San Jose and San Francisco. And we owned some of those for a while, and they really didn't look like a tourist train. So maybe that's why Tom wanted to include that in there, that it needs to be, or whoever helped prepare that wanted to have that document to say that they need to look like a regular old train.
So it seems the sections that apply are 1 and 8. 8 is the commission shall adhere to the quality control provisions. Seems like that's one that we're granted an exclusive license, 8 that we shall adhere. Does that create an obligation on the commission's part to embrace this branding for everything we do? I don't think that's clear. I think Gabe has something to say.
The branding's not.
Yeah, just identify yourself, Gabe.
Gabe Williman. The branding's not adhered to right now at all. You know, is the Jersey Lil's one color, the other cars are different color. His locomotives are totally different colors. So, you know, I don't see him being able to hold other people accountable if he's not.
Fair. So we will, in this case, we'll add this to a list of questions back for Tom before we try and manipulate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on brand? No, great.
I'm just speaking for myself. Leah, anybody have anything on the D? Okay.
Final stretch.
Yeah, no, we've another hour and a half, we'll be done with this thing. So,
Okay, so we're on attachment FF, fee and calendar schedule. Now, this is a sample. This, as a reminder, is a document that will be reviewed each year and finalized by March 1st. And so we took the original fee schedule and then added the additional dollar amounts for the other provisions within one fee schedule. There are a few things highlighted here that we do need to confirm. We'll just quickly go through this. Quickly, that's cute. I did update with the Saturday long line run and the Sunday long line runs. The commission actually, from what I was reading in the original, they would also sell the deadheads or the trips from Virginia City to Carson City. They would sell that as a ticket. And so those were also included in here. They would also sell it when it was going back up to be housed. So there's actually additional trips outlined here. I kept it to the long lines as defined as we've been doing this to remove those. So just outline, the departures and the arrivals and the deadheads. That's really the only change there. A lot of the other verbiage was picked up from the other fee schedule.
can I just ask you a quick question?
Mhm.
So, 2, 3, that's why we're not identifying anything into the canyon, Toast of Canyon, or wine trains, and then
Those would
Polar
be under
Express, 'cause
3.
you have them under section 4? Or are those
3.
Okay,
So section 2 would be the regular scheduled trains, our standard operating season.
okay.
Section 3 would be special trains and special event trains.
Could we just then add in some specificity about whatever we want to call them, Carson Canyon trains. I mean, we don't have to try to spell out beer train, wine train, whatever, but NPEX, Polar Express in there.
So
under-
such as Toast of the Canyon.
Yeah, just as a.
Polar
examples.
Express.
Mhm. I mean, I know what you mean, like the special ones where they rent the whole thing out for, $10,000-$15,000, but I just don't want to lose sight of our other, because those are, I mean, I would want to see the Toast of the Canyons come back, and we know we have Polar Express, and I realize that that's only through the existing agreement with rail events, and then, we don't know, what would happen there forward, but PEX or similar style holiday train or, something along those lines.
But if you look in section 4, those are all listed. Canyon Runs, Polar Express, Toast of the Canyon.
Yeah, no, I realize, but that's where we're identifying the cost, specifically, but I just thought maybe having it under section 3, because we're treating those not as regularly scheduled trains, just a place to put them before we talk about the cost.
But I think you need to define special events versus recurring special events, because this is talking about a BNTRR shall quote prices for each train depending on the length of the trip, standing time, and other operating costs. But pricing shall be predicated on the base price established for the regularly scheduled trains in section 2. I think if you're really getting at what does it cost to do that, like that special train that they did up to the depot, that's one thing. But if we're doing the normal Canyon stuff or Polar Express, it's already outlined in section 4. So I think that
We don't
that
need it
needs to
then,
be
you're
the
saying.
clarity, is that is for non-recurring special trains.
Okay.
And all the recurring special stuff is already outlined in section 4.
So, so Jim, you would suggest saying section 3, non-recurring special trains and special event trains. What's the difference between, what's the difference between a special train and a special event train? Can't we just, well, this is true. We could just say special event trains. I mean, yeah. Take out trains and just special trains and just say special event trains, non-recurring special. Okay, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I agree.
Non-reoccurring special event trains. That is the new title, right? Great.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I know we talked about the passenger cars and everything, but knowing that during the next 5 years, we're going to have the Centennial Trail built out, and conceptually the idea is to put people's mountain bikes in a carriage car, which I'd love to rename it to be something else. Somewhere in this agreement, I'd like to be able to acknowledge that a carriage car is going to be available for our trains that are going back and forth between Carson City and Virginia City, because this is a huge opportunity, Leah, for our two, communities to grow an audience for our operation with these mountain bikers or gravel grinder or road cyclists. I just want to make sure that
Does a carriage car exist?
I thought Tom had one, but perhaps I'm mistaken about that. I thought it was an open air car that we would convert, and I remember discussing this when we were at his shop, and converting that to allow for people to load their mountain bikes onto. And so I just had that as a note because I don't know the appropriate place to put that, I guess, but.
Well, I think that it's easy enough because this is anticipated to be something that we update annually, that it would just be a line item that comes under train services.
Okay, fair enough.
As needed.
Okay.
When that actually happens.
Yep. And then, okay, and I'm totally fine with.
Because if you look under section 5, I was looking for what, I couldn't remember where it was. It says each train has a minimum capacity of 210 passengers. I think that you need to kind of define what it is that constitutes the train service. I mean, if that's really what we want to do, is say, well, you have to have this open air car to take bikes, then, that needs to all be part of the discussion of what we expect when the train runs. And we can update that section each year, but.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, maybe just, because he talks about substituting open car, but I'm just thinking, could we expand on that a little bit? When the time comes or whatever, to have a open air car for bicycles or something.
Jim brings up another interesting point, in that the capacity references only trains in section 2. And if you look at section 2, it's only long line trains. So there's only a capacity requirement for long line trains. Now, we've added to this fee schedule in this, what's it called? A table, chart, thank you. Capacity for Canyon, for Polar, for Toast, which is something new.
I had that same question.
Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Want to make sure we're understanding the minimum capacities for every one of these and setting those in place. Because I'll be honest with you, PEX, we're sitting on a waiting list of 5,000, maybe 6,000. We had to shut the whole thing down. I'd love to see us increase capacity if the numbers pencil out. And so I don't want to limit ourselves to just the minimum of 210 for the long line. So,
well, capacity for Polar currently is 150.
yeah, so there you go, yeah.
So I guess the question is going back to Jim's comment and David's as well as including Toast of the Canyon, the Polar Express train ride. We've now changed section 3 to non-reoccurring special event trains, which wouldn't necessarily be inclusive of Toast of the Canyon and Polar Express. Do we outline Toast of the Canyon and Polar Express in section 2, which then adheres him to that capacity referenced in section 2?
I don't see why we wouldn't, but is 210 even really enough for PEX? I mean,
What I would anticipate on an annual update basis would be like a min-max capacity so that there's a guaranteed minimum, but we're also guaranteed maximum so that we can then plan and market to that range.
I totally agree. That's what I had under 5. I had min-max question mark. So we know what our capacity could be, right? So before we start to sell tickets, we go through this whole process to identify how much we're paying per train, but also an understanding of do we have a 4th car or a 5th car or whatever, yeah. I just don't know where to put that, but
I think putting it in the table makes the most sense because then
Okay.
you have all the stuff right there. I mean, I don't think we need to spell it out in words.
okay,
I think that's part of what's the commitment for the year is this is the cost
Yeah.
based on the capacity and it may end up a bigger table, honestly. It may end up based on capacity cost may change, right?
sure.
So it may need to be subsections and stuff, but I think that makes a lot of sense. And then notes, of course, is where you can put if there's specific equipment required per your previous question, that's something that we would note as well on a particular type of train.
Yeah, I love it. So maybe add a max column for sure, and then the subsections, it would, if there's a cost differential.
Yeah.
Understanding that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
comfortable.
Well,
Make
or-
it as easy as possible.
Yeah, or we can leave it just a capacity column, but maybe in parentheses, but min-max. so
That's what
that-
I did.
Right.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that- I don't need a
Capacity,
separate column for it,
min-max.
just-
Okay.
Well, then in section 5, you just take out that whole first sentence.
Yep. Yes.
Then you start with VTRR may substitute an open car in acceptable weather, and then you have, and these could be bullet points. Train must have a restroom.
Yeah.
Changes may be changed to train configuration by mutual consent.
Yep.
And you just have, and then the penalty if for late service, and then another bullet point for the redundancy and replacement of equipment if there's an unexpected breakdown. And then you could get rid of the next sentence about the capacity again.
I want to just quickly apologize, but I have to run to another meeting. That's kind of how I roll. I come in late, I leave early. I've got a brand.
Typical elected official.
I've got a brand to uphold here, so no licensing required. So thank you, everyone. Great discussions today.
Take care, Clay.
Okay.
All right. The only other thing that I wanted to, well, there's 2 things I want to address. One is we have B, locomotive number 18, and then I think equipment rental should probably be C, but under equipment rental, I'm relying on Gabe and Ken to help here, but I realize we're gonna set the cost and we're gonna have per day, per week, per month rates, but I'd like to know what these pieces of equipment are that we need to rent from Tom. And then I would also like to recommend, or just suggestion, given the troubles that we've been having with the equipment not working, and then Gabe having to run a jackhammer, and a ball peen, mallet to deal with stuff. I think there needs to be one, every year we need to have a fixed price, not changing depending on the time of the week or the month or whatever. But then I think if we're having to go to another third party to rent and it's more expensive, then maybe there needs to be a penalty or something, in this, right? Because I am aware the equipment from California costs significantly more. But I think there should be an expectation similar to the 18 that the equipment that we need to rent to take care of the maintenance and the repair, or the track and the repairs, that it's functional, it's working. Because that puts a burden primarily on you, Gabe, right? So if we're spending 5 times as much on the labor because you didn't have the piece of equipment that just lifts the boulder and moves it over, but now you're there for 2 days jackhammering away on this thing, it's costing us money, right? Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
we're not being charged for equipment that we're not able to use, are we? So I mean, I
I hope
guess
not. I hope
we can't require Tom have certain equipment, but what he does have available, I think he
Yes.
needs to give us a scheduled
Yes,
rate for.
I'd
And
agree with
if at that time it's not operational, we have no choice but to go out for an alternative, either method
Mhm.
or rental.
But I think the equipment needs to be identified in here that is available to us, because I don't think that should be a guessing game, every February. What equipment do we have to be able to use this year? Let's know and let's document the pieces of equipment that we know we need, at least that Tom has, understanding. I don't know that he has every piece of equipment. I have no idea. But, so, yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, again, I totally agree with you. It would be nice to have a definitive price that may change on a yearly basis. Tom was very reluctant to provide that. He made the comment at the last meeting. He said, well, those are numbers I usually work out with Ken once a year. But it'd be nice to know, and I can give you the list of equipment.
Okay.
Number one's a work train did not ballast. The high rail excavator, his tamping machine,
Yeah, that's the one.
and track liner.
Okay.
That's it.
So if we could,
Maybe sometimes motor car and trailers to haul rail.
okay.
Okay.
Motor car.
Motor car with trailer.
Motor car with trailer, okay.
And typically he does those on a daily basis, which is fine.
Sure.
The good point about, yes, we don't pay him for equipment when it's not running.
Mhm.
The problem is that we go pick it up, it starts to run, it breaks down, and by the same time, then he's just wasted $1,000 of the
I
commission's
know.
money because he's got a crew up there that was keyed around working with that equipment.
Right.
And, it's old equipment, I understand. But still, if you're gonna rent equipment, it should be functional.
And my issue is when that equipment was breaking down, we were still being charged for it. And I personally have a problem with that. I don't think we should be, or should be I don't think we should be charged when the equipment breaks down, but we've been paying these I know from our conversations.
Generally speaking, Gabe has worked that out with Tom. If the equipment's down, we don't
Okay.
charge for that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, he's been good about it.
okay. Okay. Okay, fair enough. So we'll put if we could just list pieces and then figure out the daily rates would be great. And then I only have one more comment, and this has to do with Polar Express and special event trains. I think that we need to have something in here that specifies that train will be at the Eastgate Depot minimum 3 hours before Polar Express, given what happened over the course of the first week of PEX. Pulling a train in 30 minutes before we're scheduled to leave, and then trying to run through sound checks, all the stuff that has to happen. I don't think that that's fair to Allison and her team, I don't think that provides, a great visitor experience when there are issues, there are problems. So I'd like to recommend, I'd like to start at 3 hours minimum for special event trains and, sorry, the non-recurring special event trains and Polar Express, to have something in there that says that that train will be there. And again, if it's not, there should be a penalty then, right?
And I'm fine with adding that language, but I think it maybe needs to go in the services agreement versus the fee schedule.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that certainly could go there.
I'm almost picturing it as under VTRR, a VTRR shall provide the train at minimum 3 hours prior to departure when requested by the commission. Because for the long line, I mean, it gets there in 15 minutes for us to then board and depart. It's really going to be the first night of Polar Express where we're having to check everything that we've just installed, make sure our two systems talk, et cetera. Now we're at a place where there's an agreement with Tom's team that they'll be ready by 4 o'clock so that we can then get on, turn everything on, test everything on, and go by 5. Luckily, I've got sound techs that know what they're doing and they're very quick and efficient at it. But night one of Polar, even with the greatest sound techs from rail events, we were struggling to leave on time.
Yeah, just have something in here. Maybe it's for the Wednesday, right? When it comes down after a week later, who knows? Cables get disconnected or some. Last thing I want to see is trains leaving and late, and then we're jammed up from 5 to 6:30 to 8 or whatever. So, just like to have something in here.
Just to comment on that, I agree with Allison. Maybe you want to limit that to the Polar end, maybe a special event, because if we ever get the Canyon Run going, what Tom tries to do is have that same train crew operate the Canyon Run has run the long line. And remember, there's those train crews are subject to a 12-hour maximum workday pursuant to federal law. So if you get them done the 3 hours early, you're going to be paying for a second train crew to go to the canyon.
Okay, no, fair enough. And I'm okay with, I'm okay excluding those. Yeah,
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
I doubt it.
My fingers were crossed.
So for that one, you could also add another bullet. There's already a 10% time penalty or penalty for trains not running on time in the section 5. Just add another bullet in there if you need to that talks about these trains, these special event trains being there, 2 hours early, otherwise there's a 10% penalty. That was not my question, however. Back on the previous page, the fuel and the use of the locomotive. I want to get away from this fuel surcharge. I want him to come up with a price that at the beginning of the year, we're doing this every year. I want him to come up with a price at the beginning of the year, and that's what we pay for the train. There's no $500 lease revenue. There's no fuel surcharge. This is how much it costs for a train this year.
Fair enough.
We're basing something off of 2012, and I think that is outdated, and we are going to update this every year, and I think that it's time to just get rid of that. Because we're going to say the train's going to cost, just say the train's going to cost $5,300 instead of $5,000 plus a $300 surcharge, or maybe it's $200 surcharge, or maybe it's a $500 surcharge, depending on what I paid for water this week or fuel this week. So I'd like to see it all one price.
And
when we get
remove
there.
row 2 of
Yep, the
number
lease.
B, section
Yep.
4B. Yeah, okay.
Yep,
I like that idea.
yep.
It's simple.
That-
Why
this
is he
whole
paying
thing,
us and we're paying
it's
him?
confusing to Story County when they try to break apart the bill. It causes issues. Let's just pay for the train.
Yep.
We'll budget our maintenance costs in accordance with what he tells us we need to at the beginning of the year, and what that is is irrelevant.
It's an out-the-door price.
Yep.
Would there be any fear of drawing that hard line with Tom and then him escalating the fee to cover himself?
He's going to do it anyway. We're going to have to I just don't like having that in there. I want him to come up with a price for the year.
And would it be acceptable at this point to maybe put a note in this template that that's what we'd like to discuss with him, at the retreat when we have the conversation, instead of just striking it and without being able to have that conversation with
Well,
him?
I think we need to have the conversation. I don't want to have these things. I want to know what we're paying.
Mhm.
I want some stability in this stuff. Frankly, I'm a little bit with David that this charter services agreement where we're paying a flat rate, whether we have 2 people on it or 200 people on it.
Mhm.
There's no disincentive for him to have a train. That's why when we run every week, we don't make any money, but he makes his money.
Right.
Well, if this was set up where if we run a train and there's only 50 people on it, he only gets this much money, but if there's 200 people on it, we get this much money, then it's a whole different story. So I want him to have a little bit of skin in the game
Mhm.
in some of this stuff, and I think this is one of the ways for him to do that.
Right, and I agree, and I think we should have that total conversation with him, but we were gonna have that
We can have it.
conversation when
We can have it in
Yeah.
May, but I don't want it to be part of this agreement. I would rather be starting to get him thinking about, we want to get rid of some of this stuff now. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have start the conversation with him
Mhm.
in March.
Okay.
I mean, he'll have some semblance of an idea what it's going to cost this year, and I don't remember, frankly, this year what the differential has been. But I just think that that's one. I think we already talked about Section 6.
Yeah.
Would go back into the other one, and then the other one, Section 7, is also repetitive of his duties regarding the dispatching. And so I think that, again, I think that needs to go back up into the dispatch. If there's language in here that needs to be going into that dispatch paragraph that we created in, I don't even remember what attachment now, but where we separated that one highlighted section out, I think that we can get rid of 6 and 7 here.
Yep.
And then same thing with the contacts. The contacts, I think, are in the original. Section 8, I think, is in the original template. So I don't think we need Section 8 either, which takes out Section 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
And parts of 4.
They would go into CC.
And then I think the other thing, I would consider even taking out Section 2 altogether and just talk about the trains. Instead of having a long line defined and then having all this other stuff, let's just talk about train service.
So dump 2 and 3?
No, you could leave 3 because that's the whole definition of the,
Okay,
like
the
that
differential,
special
non-recurring.
non-recurring event where they had
Okay,
the dinner at the depot and stuff like that. I think that's,
okay.
but 2 really becomes a large part of what you see in the list in 4, the round trips and the deadheads, and that's already in there. I mean, if you
Do
want to put
we-
in times.
Time, I was gonna say, should we just keep the time but move it to the schedule?
You can put the times in the schedule and just say,
Okay,
the round trip CC to Virginia City, it leaves the CC depot at 10 a.m. and arrives or departs Virginia City at 3 p.m.
okay.
And you could just put an asterisk next to the round trip and then put it at the bottom, 10 a.m. Because we could change that. I mean, we never have,
Right, right.
but do we want to? And
Yeah.
that's a question that we have. Some people think it's too long to stay in Virginia City. Some people think it's too short.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have enough time.
Oh, you have to recuse yourself, Leah, from such a discussion.
Okay, so that's all I had on that one.
Okay.
So once we remove the table from section 2, we're left with the paragraph. Is there anything else that would be outlined in section 2 then? Or we're adding in Toast to the Canyon and the Polar Express train ride, and we've got the Carson City long line here. So are we just basically defining what our regular scheduled trains are?
I would move the scheduled trains originating the subject to the 48 hours notice into section 5, the train service. There's just another bullet point. And then get rid of the definitions and then put those as like an asterisk under the table in 4. I don't think you need 2 at all.
Okay.
Do we feel like we've made enough changes? No? Jim would like to go. The motion on this is going to be very unique, Mihaela, as someone tries to recap every single one of these changes in their motion in less than 20 minutes. Oh, you got it. Oh, all right. Stephanie's ready to roll.
All right, if we're ready, I
Yes.
move to approve the draft master contract with the discussion and changes as noted on the record, and direct staff and/or the chair to coordinate review with VTRR's attorney.
Thank you for that simple motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. And Stephanie, please, thank you, really, seriously, and Mihaela for coming in on this to help us get this thing going.
Really,
This is a huge thing.
it truly was a team effort, and Allison and Leah
Allison,
were
sorry.
very
Yeah.
instrumental. Clay was instrumental in it, and I think the discussion today was very instrumental in it, so
Yeah.
go team.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you again. So we'll move on to agenda item 11 for discussion only, discussion and presentation regarding Freedom Rail's operations plan for 2023. We do not have these folks, for whatever reason, on the WebEx today. Thank you, Stephanie. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed that they're not here. They had plenty of time. They were supposed to be here last month. They chose to come this month to talk through the significant decline in the revenues. I'm aware, I believe, Allison, am I correct in saying they have not paid us for their 50% of the utilities starting from July 1st forward either? We've not received any payments?
That is correct. We've not received any payments for utilities. Additionally, we do have one revenue check that has bounced that has not been reconciled.
Okay, so I'm beyond concerned about, one, us not being paid again. If you recall last year, we did collapse several months' worth of utilities into one invoice with the backup, and it took, I don't know, 7 months or however long for them to pay us. They asked to go at the end of each month to be able to pay us from a cash flow perspective. They have not paid us at all for any of those months. Still don't have a clear understanding of the huge drop in revenue, which is impacting our budget calculations as well, right, our projections. You know, I think we need to have a serious conversation, and I know we can't do this today because we didn't agendize it as such, but about moving on from these folks. And maybe we do an RFP to bring another operator in here. And so, you know, again, I know we can't do that today, but certainly for January, you know, I know they're trying to run a Georgia operation too, and that pulled our staff away. They shut down our operations before the end of October as well, without technically notifying us.
Without notifying us, yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know, it's just rubbing me the wrong way. So I don't know how my peers feel, but
I would prefer that we just put a termination of the contract on the next agenda item, or the next board meeting. Terminate the contract, and if we really want to have rail bikes, let's go out to bid.
okay, fair enough, great.
And I would, I mean, I haven't been here for the previous discussion, but if this is an ongoing issue, then I don't see wasting
Great.
more time.
Thank you. We'll do that then for the January meeting, so thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 12 for discussion only. These are our monthly non-action items. We'll start with 12A, operations report. Take it away, Allison.
Thank you, David. So I don't have a formal deck today. We are in the middle of Polar Express right now, and so on average, we get there at about 3 o'clock. We're there till about 9:30, 10. So we currently have had 3,200 passengers that have come through Polar Express. It definitely is more work handling both depot and train operations, but overwhelming feedback of several mentions of best year ever. I did go into our survey results. Of the 3,200, we've only had about 25 responses of all the emails, the voicemails, the survey responses we've we've received 2 negative comments, and both of which we've identified the source of those negative comments and have already fixed what the issues were. We are seeing a lot of influx in calls and sickness. It significantly more than we did last year. My personal theory is there's a lot of sickness across the board, not just necessarily affecting our train. I did talk to Tom and his operations. He's also seeing that as well with his trains, that a lot of same day cancellations, a lot of people maybe panic buying when we went on sale and then wanting to change dates, et cetera. And so that's really kind of taking a lot of Leah's time with the voicemails. Is just texting with her. She's at 15 voicemails from just today. With just various requests and things like that. We did need to close our waiting list. We created a form that we had on our website. We didn't do this last year. It was kind of a last minute, let's try this. And I did a quick post about, hey, we have a waiting list this year. And I had to close it because we got up to about 5,000 passengers, about 1,200 people that had gone in and submitted themselves to the wait list. And so the number is, anywhere from I need 2 tickets to 17 tickets. It's kind of across the board. But when I did a sum of the Excel, it was around just over 5,000. But other than that, we've not had any late trains. We have been running fairly on time. Really positive feedback from the cast as well. We have a great cast, about 40 kids total, but we have about 22 on each night. So I think that's it for Polar, unless there's any specific questions. I did also want to mention in my update that we are having some issues getting contact with Roy Street for his payments. And so I believe it started in maybe September. Jim worked through the numbers of what was due. There was a partial payment applied to October. His October payment did not come in. His November payment did not come in. Most of our phone calls, the way that it goes is, I need an update from him. I need an update on what I owe. Great, I'll send you an email. A follow-up phone call of, can you send me an email? I sent you the email, and just kind of going back and forth in that manner. Oh, hi.
So you might have to, yes, for Leah, yeah.
Yeah, and Jim might have to jump in as well on the syntax of this, but essentially Roy Street has a note due to us with monthly payments, with it ending at the end of 2024. And so he's currently 2 months behind on his payments.
And Leah, this is for the Draco property here in Carson City, a big building.
Took me a few months to wrap my head around
Yeah.
it. Still am. So I just checked my email. The last time I had reached out was, I believe, November 3rd. And then we quickly after that jumped into Polar. So I have not reached out again since then, but this is the last time of multiple contacts with him of trying to secure payment from him.
Is part of his confusion, because you know how we assess the late penalty fees, but that's separate from what he's supposed to be paying for the regular note? Is he still confusing because he's making a payment, but not all of that is actually per the amortization schedule
He's
because
not
he's
making
been late?
payments.
Oh, so, well, okay.
He makes lump sum payments. We got payments in June and late June and July, or
Okay.
early July and late July, that were months. And then he made up months, and then he basically prepaid months, almost like he forgot he paid
Oh my God.
the check. So we
Okay.
got these 2 payments in a very short period of time, weeks, that basically covered the in arrears plus through September and part of October. He doesn't have a flipping clue what he's paying.
Okay.
And
That
I'm
is
ready to
accurate.
start to have Mihaela work on,
Yep.
you have to wake up over there, on foreclosure.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you can't pay the bill, then we'll take the property back and sell it to someone else.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Do we want to maybe look at something being agendized?
By
For January?
January, if he is not caught up by January, I think we
Okay.
need to start having a discussion about a foreclosure.
Okay. I think that's fair.
And the confusion seems to be always something different. What's your PO box? How do I do a wire transfer? It's kind of, it's
Okay.
something different. I didn't get your email, so, yeah.
Okay.
It does take a lot of our time I'm on the phone with him a
No, I
lot,
know.
and then following up via email, so,
And that's costing us money, right? For your
Yes.
time and Leah's
Yes.
time with all this back and forth dinking around. I would just, I want to compliment you, Leah, and the team and the folks that you hired for Polar. It, like, wow. The depot's awesome. You know, the power works. I was so thrilled. You know, I was worried to plug my phone in, you know, to charge it and shut the whole depot down. You did an amazing job. The comments walking around listening to people, they were blown away by the decorations and the inside of the depot. And then the sound, you guys, it's like night and day better at utilizing Tom's Bose system and the mixers and all that stuff. And I thank Daniel from Rail Events too for helping.
thank you for
know.
mentioning that. Yeah, Daniel
Yeah.
from Rail Events came. He's in charge of all production for Rail Events, and his comments were, we checked every box on, they have a checklist of
Yeah.
how we're graded. We didn't check every box, almost every box last year. We checked
Mm-hmm.
every box this year, which was a really big feat. And his response to us was the only thing that you could do better is have more cars and more passengers, because it's
Yeah.
a really good production.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. How many? The Grand Canyon train has
15.
15 cars, you guys. And it's sold out down there. It's like amazing.
Yeah, and they do like 3 or 4 runs a day. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite the production.
And Leah, with every box being checked, my bonus doubled this year as the chair. So that was really, yes, thank you. It's awesome to hear. Yeah. So thank you. Great
Mm-hmm.
job on that front. Did you want to add anything? Or are you okay?
No,
Okay.
I
No,
think I'm
thank you.
good. Yeah.
Okay, 12B, I know Tom's working on his own trains today, so we'll skip over the train operations report. Move to 12C, engineers report. Mr. Dorr.
Yeah, probably drag Gabe up here real quick. Quite a few end of fall items Gabe got taken care of. The miraculous thing is we finally got some material from A&K Railroad Materials after filling out the credit application, and they needed this and that. And I said, we bought $2.5 million worth of rail from you guys a few years ago. We didn't have near as much paperwork for $2,000 worth of material. So welcome to the new times. Anyway, such exciting things as track bolts, joint bars, and some lubricant. Fascinating stuff here. Gabe was able to spend a couple days with the ballast regulator. Things are looking pretty good there. There's always more work. Pre-emergence down. And you got about, 3 miles of joint oiling, which joint oiling, again, to get real technical, is what we tend to do on jointed track. We want the rail to move with thermal and dynamic actions. And so we break the joint bars, oil those joint bars, and then retorque the bolts. At the same time, he does some reset rail anchors and does some respiking. Most exciting thing, of course, was the big rock fall at milepost 13-1 above tunnel number 2. Historically, that's actually pretty funny. When we first looked at that before there was any track, there was a big pile of rocks right outside of that cut. So they've been cleaning rocks out of that cut since 1869. And so Gabe had to do the same thing that's been done forever. And he was able to work without the benefit of the track excavator, but we'll have to get up back there and clean that, some of that rubble out of there. But right now he got it broken up and moved across the track and had that all under control all by himself there. So that was good. We've got our annual inspections done on the bridge, tunnel, miscellaneous culverts, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have that report finished up. And the hard copy we've been keeping over at the depot. We'll also have electronic one. And so probably in January, I'll give you another little care package of documents. That's about all I've got. I know that we're looking at budget for fiscal 23. We're starting to put numbers together on that. What, February? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Sounds, yeah, because
Please.
I've got some items there we
Okay.
need to hash through. Nothing we haven't discussed before, but some items that are probably over and above what we normally put on for track maintenance that
Great.
the board needs to ponder on a little bit there. So,
Okay.
Gabe? Yeah. Do you have anything? Nope. You don't get off that easy.
Nothing from Gabe. No, that's great, Ken. Thank you. Any questions for Ken or Gabe? Okay.
Again, anybody wants a high rail trip, Leah, we'd probably
Oh,
drag
yeah.
you on the high rail there
Yeah.
sometime, so she can see what the track looks like.
Yep. Give her a discount, no charge on the full price, so, yeah.
Well,
Commission discount, yeah.
wait a minute, we need the revenue as much as
Well,
we
that's a good
can.
point. Yeah, charge her double. They got plenty of cash up there. Yeah, no. No, thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. And thank you for taking care of the boulder because there'd be no PEX without getting that off the track. So we'd be pulling people down up the hill. So, okay. Thank you again. 12D upcoming meeting, next meeting, January 25th, Wednesday, right here, same time, 9 a.m. in this building. We'll move on to agenda item 13, commissioner comments or announcements and requests for information. No action will be taken. No discussion among the members or with staff will take place during this item of the agenda. Any comments, Jim or Leah? Okay, so we're down to the three of us here. We'll move on to 14, public comment. I do not see anybody in the room wanting to make a public comment, which is great. Could I get a motion to adjourn? So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.